All right. Enough of that damn music. Testing, testing, testing. Oops. Testing, 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 testing. Uh, I need to make sure. Okay. Yeah, you guys can hear me on YouTube. Let me know on YouTube if you guys can hear me. Um, Let me go here. But I don't really know. I don't need to go here. I could go back. Go out of this. Well, let me send this to the judge. Copy link. Copy. Started. All right. Let's see. Go back here. Here. All right. Hi, Dr. Mark. Bracy. So just waiting for the judge to come up. Okay, you can thank you guys on YouTube. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, Mel, Rice, Tima, Jive Turkey, Joyce, Rick. Let me go to YouTube. So let me go to YouTube. All right, so it should be a good show. It's open mic every Tuesday, Judicial Brown X Space. And he should be coming up shortly. So I kind of changed up the title a little bit. Politics, Law, and Laughs with Judge Joe Brown. Hashtag Joy Reid. Hashtag Vivek. And on YouTube, the title is Joy Reid gets canceled, Vivek Ramaswamy gets endorsed, and Jamal Bryant keeps grifting. Right. And then, of course, again, it's open mic. So it could be about whatever law, politics, anything that's trending in the news that you guys want to talk about. You request to come up and have at it. I've been doing my own X Spaces Thursday and Fridays, and I think I'm gonna add Sundays because it was fun. And then I uploaded on my main YouTube channel, The Real Dana. And Peter, he has been co-hosting with me, so that was pretty cool. And there was some really good conversations that people, the speakers were adding on to the discussion. So I really appreciate that. And so we're going to get the space started soon. I may have to call the judge to make sure that he got the link to be on the lookout for that. Let me call him on my other phone and see, because it does sometimes take him a minute to log on. Hi, Black Idaho. Let's see. Um, let's see. Let me text him. Are you logging on? All right. So I don't know how long he's gonna be because I'm trying to call him. He ain't picking up. So listen, if you guys, we could start the conversation. If anybody want to request to come up, please do so. Usually the space lasts 4 hours. I really don't want it to last that long. I would love if we could just get 2 hours in, but I noticed that people end up coming into the space later. Hello, did you get the link?
I got the link, trying to get in, was getting off of a phone call. Anyway, let me get on with it. All right.
Okay, all right. So he should be coming up shortly. So so it's open mic. You guys could request to come up at any time. Oh, here's the thing though. One of the things, not saying that it annoys me, but it's just like, don't wait until, okay, we're going to be closing out and then I get a rush of 5 speakers, especially if you've been in here listening for a while. Just If you got something to say, don't wait. Just come and say it, because it may be something else that you want to speak on. I'm sending you co-host. It may be something else that you want to speak on. And if you wait till the end of the show, that means I have to extend it, and I get tired. Can you hear me, Josh? You're muted. I just want to make sure you can hear me and we can hear
I
you.
hear you. Roger
Hi,
that.
how are you?
Okay, doing fine, I guess.
Um, so yeah, hi Dr. Mark. You had a busy week last week and you were out of town and came back. So glad you could be here tonight. So the topics, right? I put hashtag Joy Reid. We know she got fired. Also put hashtag Vivek. He was endorsed. He's running for governor of Ohio. He made that announcement Monday, and he got endorsed today by, or was it last night, by Trump and Elon. So in Ohio, a lot of Ohio people love Trump, and whoever he graced his endorsement to, a lot of times that politician gets elected in office. So he may be the new governor of Ohio. And I kind of want to get people opinion on that. Also, I put in the title on YouTube, Jamal Bryant always grifting. Like, he's always complaining about something. And he had a video clip from his Sunday sermon this past Sunday that went viral, where he's talking about the Black History Month celebration that took place in the White House last week. And he was basically calling those Black people coons and buck dancing and all these derogatory names. Meanwhile, I think he's a scammer. He doesn't do really anything productive for the Black community, especially when we talk about people who are living in poverty. And he's a multimillionaire getting millions of dollars every month from his congregation, and don't reinvest that in the Black community. But he want to talk all this Black stuff. So where do you want to start at, Judge? You're muted.
Go for it. Take a question from the audience. Somebody put their hand up and get called on.
Um, I didn't mute. Oh, you pressed the mute button. Mute everybody. All right. So, Dr. Mark, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Judge?
I hear you.
Okay. How are you, Dr. Mark?
I'm doing good. I'm not on call, so that's always a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing, Judge?
All right, sir. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. So, let's start with Joy Reid being fired. Um, One, she was horrible, but like I have this theory with a lot of these Black women on these liberal outlets. I believe they're purposely placed there to just rage and say the most silly, illogical things. And their cover for it is always being able to accuse somebody of racism. Like you watch it on Abby Phillips, for example. There's a crazy Black woman like Tara Setmeyer and or Carrie Champion, and they
Hmm.
can't articulate their points well to Scott Jennings. So they kind of have this, well, I'm a Black woman, you have to hear my truth type thing. So I think these Black women are there purposely to trigger emotions and appeal to the emotions of their most ardent supporters, which are Black women. With that said, though, I think what you're seeing in real time is that when it doesn't work, when the results aren't what they want, you're disposable. And while I have no love for Joy Reid and I thought she was off her rockers, I'll say this: I think she's a smart woman. I think she was just following orders on how to carry herself. Same thing with Jasmine Crockett, by the way. But um, Joy Reid was let go. Um, but Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, whoever was at the 9 o'clock slot, Jen Psaki, that whole network, their ratings are horrible across the board. Rachel Maddow, though, the lesbian white woman, she gets to stay with her $25 million contract. And really, she was just filming like once a week. She temporarily came back for, her usual 5 week um, nightly show, but it's going back to once a week. Um, but they're happy to dispose of black women once it doesn't work. I think the same is going to happen with Abby Phillips, Lauren Coates, and a lot of these um, black women that you see on TV. But with that said, Joy Reid is gone, and I don't think there's a market for her, to be honest, in this day and age. As far as Vivek goes, I mean, he has Trump's support, so I think he should do good. And he's already touting something that's, I'm pretty sure, appealing to a lot of Ohioans, which is no state taxes. I wish a governor here would do the same for us. Trump just has that sway. He has that power right now. And on another note, I mean, it isn't official yet, but Byron Donalds will be running for governor. And I think there's rumors that Ron DeSantis may want his wife to run or something to that effect. But what was going to be found out is that, it's always been about who Trump endorses. And I think you're going to see like that come into full effect as well. Um, and in other news, Trump, the Senate just at least, passed the budget resolution. So again, Trump just keeps winning, and the liberal media is going to continue to melt down. So, like I said, good times, fun times, and just continue to see how everything develops. Oh, and as for Pastor Jamal Bryant, look, I believe, God is graceful and merciful, and people are saved because of Christ alone. But this guy's a poor representative of what a pastor should be. I mean, he in his previous church sleeping with a lot of women, divorced his wife. Now his wife is on a reality TV show. He's embarrassed himself on a TV show. I just don't see who can take this guy seriously. I'm really shocked that he still has a following, and he's at the church. He's at Eddie Long's former church. It's like it's Eddie Long had this controversy with these young boys and being a groomer and a molester. That seemed to be evident. And then it's like, instead of trying to do better and not wanting anybody with controversy, I guess the church decided, well, let's just go with this former adulterer. And voila, Jamal Bryant relocated from, I guess, Baltimore, and is now here in Metro Atlanta at a New Birth. I don't know. I just question a lot of people who would follow that. I mean, not, people say don't judge and so forth, or, he still may have a gift from God or whatever. But I mean, look, his actions are his actions. And, I just don't, he's a caricature. I don't see how anybody could take him seriously. And I'll stop there.
All right. Yeah, that's right. They did pass the budget, and it's no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, and no taxes on Social Security. That's a big deal when you talk about the middle class. That's a major big deal. I'm gonna go to Corliss. Did I say
Well
your name
put,
right?
by the way. Well put.
Thank you. It is Corliss.
Okay.
Corliss.
How
Yes,
are you?
it's an honor to be in the presence of Judge Joe Brown. I've been a big fan for a long time, ever
Thank
since
you.
I was a kid. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. He's a great American. I do not. One of my biggest questions is why you're not running for any kind of office or taking any kind of appointment to political office, because you would clean house um, judiciously the way Musk is cleaning house economically. I'm a big fan of Herschel Walker as a kid, even back when he promoted calisthenics for kids rather than weights. He ran for office, but I mean, he didn't get traction. And Candace Owens, I'm a big fan of Candace Owens. And, you know, those big three, I think, would do miracles for the black community, get it back before the LBJ administration destroyed a good uh, a good part of our community. And if nobody's seen the interview with Judge Joe Brown on the PBD show, go see it. He breaks it all down for you, and even had Bob Woodson on there. another great American, you know, and here I am. I'm a white guy promoting this, but according to some people, even in my own family, according to one drop rule, I'm not white. You know what I mean? Because I have African American ancestors on my mother's side. So that being said, I may not have the black experience, but I identify with the contributions that the black community has made to America. The music industry would be nothing without the black community. People like to say, "Oh, wherever the Jews leave, the economy leaves, the money leaves." Well, wherever Africans leave, the music industry leaves. And music is in my blood. I've been a big fan of a lot of artists. I'm not going to get into that now because this is politics. But my biggest question is, why is Judge Joe Brown not holding office somewhere?
I don't know if I'll ever run for anything again. I've held elected office before. I might take an appointment, might take one of those, but somebody's got to come get me. I've tried to do my part outside of an official position, but some people just aren't interested, it seems. Maybe I caused too much, shall we say, tightening of the sphincter type thing, you know? I don't know. We'll see. But thank you much. I appreciate that. And I pass the mic.
All right. The black. Wait, I want to say something to Corliss. Um, because you said, who was it? You mentioned Candace Owens, and you said who else you wanted to see run for office?
Herschel Walker, he
Mhm.
ran for office in Georgia,
Yeah. And who?
and I was always a big fan of him.
But
Um,
why
Bob
do you?
Woodson,
Why do you? Who?
Bob Woodson,
Oh, Bob Wilson. So why do you
yeah,
think? I think. Why do you think Candace Owens would be a good politician?
because she's like the female Judge Joe Brown. She ruffles feathers. She tells it like it is. You know, right or wrong, she's not afraid to pull punches. You know what I mean?
Candace
And
said they could kill us. She said the cops could fucking exterminate.
Do not get off your mic. I don't do that. Oh, we don't do that in this space. Go ahead, finish,
if
Corliss.
if you go to Candace Owens YouTube and you look at like her, anybody can do this for any type of figure. You go to their videos and you click on popular and you look at their most viewed videos. And some of her most viewed videos are very exciting to watch because they have so much information. Like she did one with an ex-CIA operative in the U.S. government that shed light on how they don't even care about the lives of their own employees, never mind its citizens. And it was broken down so well that you can't ignore it, but yet people want to be oblivious. They don't want to look at this stuff. Her delivery might be harsh. She might say things to stir things up. She might wear T-shirts with Kanye saying "White Lives Matter," but that's just That's like Trump saying he's going to make Palestine Gaza into a resort. He's going to own it. He's not really going to do that. He's hustling. He's getting people talking. And that's what she does. But do I think her heart's in the right place? 100%. Do I think Judge Joe Brown's heart's in the right place? 100%. Bob Woodson, 100%. Herschel Walker, 100%. Now, these people I'm just mentioning now, they should be collaborating because they're influencers, you know. And this is what other people do. You see the Jewish people, they'll collaborate 100%. Hell, they'll move into the same community. They'll work at the same business. They'll do business with each other. This is what all communities need to do. All
Well,
communities.
yeah. So I get your point, but I think for me, this is my pushback. Candace Owens is a journalist and she's good at it. And it took years for her to get to where she's at now. This just didn't happen overnight. Um and so I think that because you or we may be a fan of someone or admire someone doesn't mean that they're politician material, even statesmen. And then does she even want it? So Herschel Walker, for instance, a lot of people, didn't take him seriously, but we knew that he was going to be taking orders from Trump and the Republican Party. So if people are fine with Trump and his agenda, then you're going to be fine with Walker. Like if I lived in Georgia, I would have voted for Herschel Walker over Warnock. So because I knew he's a soldier for Trump, right? And I support Trump. But Candace Owens, even though she supports Trump, like you said, she's gonna tell it like it is. She's not so much a yes woman, but she's not. I wouldn't vote for her per se. I don't know, maybe because sometimes people that have no political experience may surprise you, especially because it's a switch. She's in journalistic mode. If she was to ever decide to run for local office or whatever, it is a switch. And I don't live where she lives at, but I would be interested in seeing her agenda. So I'm not going to sit up here and say, oh, I won't take her seriously because she's a journalist, because Trump never was a political figure. He was a businessman, and he brings that expertise over into the White House. So I get what you're saying. Um,
If I can
with
get my
with
2 cents in on this, it's personal between Candace Owens and myself, but by agreement, I kind of adopted her. So I'm on her side. She's in my family circle, and I think she's an outstanding person. So there's that. Also, I've got a new addition to that circle I might tell you about this evening, but I agree with you. She's a very interesting and dynamic person, and she deals with something that is not pushed these days. She is first and foremost a mother. She has children, three, two, one, and one on the way. So you don't get that these days, where people are actually trying to do that and do commentary on the other side. She's local to me because she lives in Tennessee and I am there too. So yeah, okay.
hey, the black.
Shout out to wonderful Dana and the great Judge Joe Brown and everybody in the
Hey.
space. To start out with Jamal Bryant, he reminds me of one of those old slave preacher tropes that is half mandingo that just keep the flock quiet and numb in the mind. So I don't see how he has a church going after all the scandals that he went through. Like that, there must be a weird, freaky church. But knowing the history of the church house, it's not too far of a shot that it is. When it come down to Joy Reid, I'm glad that her propaganda pushing behind is gone. In these weird wigs that she used to wear, it was embarrassing us because they compared her to real black women, and I just didn't like that. My granny wasn't wearing no weird wigs like that. I'm sorry. I just want to put that out there. She came out with better quality wigs. I don't know what MSNBC was doing. Their budget was low, but they should have did better than that. So I guess they were saving money for paying Rachel Maddow all that money, and they couldn't afford that many wigs. But yes, hopefully she goes on to do better things back in her homeland in Africa, and use her American education for the betterment of her Congolese ancestors. And I want to ask Judge Joe Brown, how can uh, our city, like me and my community, find out more about Jasmine Crockett? Because she popped up out of nowhere. And she won by like a few hundred votes just because she was going against a former Democratic person, former Democratic Party person that switched to libertarian. So I just feel like that was just a go ahead play. So because when you look up her background, like where her parents from, it's very vague. It's hard to find like information of where they from. And I know she was born in St. Louis, and she moved to Texas when after she graduated. But yeah, they very vague on her life. I'm trying to see how can we gain like more information about her since she supposed to be a public figure.
Well, you might do a little bit more in-depth research, but I mean, bottom line is Jasmine C is like an idiot, and she's a loudmouth who followed the track to success in black politics, become a successful bed wench, and then you get promoted to being mammy over the Negroes. And that's what happened. Pass the mic.
I agree. I agree with that because yeah, I don't know where this bed wench came from. I ain't want to go that deep in calling her that because that's what I really just want to put her in that lane. But I'm trying to be more respectful because I I hold you in high regard. But yeah, it's good speaking to you. Shout out to you, Dana, and everybody in the space.
Yeah, thank you. I
Well,
appreciate that.
women want to be treated as equal these days. So if you get treated as equal and you don't, that means you don't get deferred to. That means you get treated just like everybody else. And if you are a mess up, cut up, F up, or you are undeserving, then you will be subject to being talked about. And Crockett is an idiot. She sounds like a fool. And I really wish she would, speaking of wigs, since somebody brought that up, do a little better about disguising the fact that she's got a wig on. She might start scratching her head like Kanye Jackson, the latest addition to the U.S. Supreme Court, was doing when she was being interviewed during the confirmation hearings. I really was thinking, hey, if she scratches her head one more time, I'm going to throw something at my TV set. I had to turn it off so I didn't break it.
She might got
Anyway,
a little alopecia on her.
yeah, I passed the mic.
Um, all right, so I'll go to I don't see Campbell. Okay, he must have dropped down. Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Dana. Joy Reid, I couldn't stand her. I thought she was a humongous race baiter. I think that's all she held going for her. Vivek, I think he'd make a good governor, but I don't trust him farther than I could spit. And I think North Carolina made a big mistake in not putting Mark Robinson in there. As many problems as they've been having, I think they made a huge mistake. Candace, I really like. I don't agree with her about everything, but she's a disruptor. She's smart, and she just lays it out there, and I've got to respect that. And she's smart as hell. Um, the main thing I wanted to ask you, Judge, is could you tell us a little bit about your dinner at the White House?
It wasn't a dinner; it was a reception, and it was huge, very interesting. I found something that started me to thinking about it when I walked in. Instead of having corporals and sergeants from the military in attendance and being the people that saw to the order and acting as host, I think the lowest rank I saw in there was a Air Force, Marine, or Army captain. And it went all the way up to lieutenant colonels that I saw, a whole lot of majors. And considering colonels command units with 4, 5, 6,000 people in them, it struck me as strange about somebody that's in charge of several thousand people in the military context is handing you a glass of champagne or assisting you in finding something. That was rather extraordinary. And what we did have is people from all walks of life came there and they were welcome. And unlike situations where the president walks in, quickly walks out after he does his duty, he lingered. And he didn't get on the podium, he got down on the floor with the people, which I thought was a nice touch. So it was an interesting exposure to a lot of people who are grassroots people who are about the business of being somebody that lives in America, you know? I mean, America has problems, but it's like any other home, any other family. There are people in the family you don't like, people in the family that you can't get along with, people that you can get along with, but there's a loyalty to the family, a loyalty to the team. And I saw an extreme amount of loyalty to the team. So I was impressed. I'll pass the mic.
Anything else, Nancy?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for your remarks, by the way.
Yeah. Gibson, hi.
Hi, Dana. Hello to the Honorable Judge Brown. And I miss y'all at the White House, but I had something very, very important that I was working on. But I want to say a little bit about Jamal Bryant, the bootleg preacher in Georgia. I flew into Atlanta today so I can confront him on tomorrow. I will be doing a video. So if anybody is in Georgia and want to join me around about 5:30, 6 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be at that church and I'm gonna try to get a little interaction with Mr. Jamal, because one thing I'm jealous because he called everybody coons for going to the White House and I wasn't there, and I'm Mr. Coon. So I wanted him to explain this to me. So I will be out there tomorrow at his church. So if anybody in this space or know anybody in Atlanta, Georgia, want to join me around 5:30, I will be at his church on tomorrow around 5 or 5:30. Thank you.
Let me say this. Thank you for your comments. Good luck on interviewing him if he allows it. But anybody that's become a multimillionaire preaching is a pimp. Preachers are supposed to be saving folk from going to hell, to get them somewhere else and to guide their lives. When you get a pimp on a pulpit who is exploiting a lot of people who are worried about going to hell and tries to convince them that by sending something to him for his enrichment, he's going to hell too. So he'll be pre-making his acquaintances in the afterlife. The thing of it is if the church raises a lot of money that it uses on good projects, that's one thing. If the money goes into getting the pimp on the pulpit or in the pulpit, a bigger car, more luxury status car, more fur coats for the women in his life, in the jewelry, and a bunch of little anathemas to what the gospel says, prancing around spastically in front of his pulpit. That's not the way we go. And essentially, what happens with black preachers is too many of them succumb to the temptation of playing plantation preacher or post uh, Civil War preacher, which is you pacify your black congregation so they can take one more week instead of motivating them to do something about their circumstances. I pass the mic. Thank you.
Anything else you want to say, Gibson?
No, that is
All
it.
right.
Thank you. I'm gonna get prepared for tomorrow. Like, once again, if anybody in Atlanta want to join me out there, I'm definitely gonna confront this guy tomorrow. I got some signs and stuff also that I'm gonna have down.
Tear him up. He needs it. He's going to hell, so you can take a minion of the devil and you can
Oh, I most
preach.
Almost definitely will. I think he's on some of his remember he was talking about growing marijuana on some of the property there at the church where they had so much property. So I think he uses some of his own marijuana there why he's speaking like that. But I'm gonna find out tomorrow. I'm gonna have a lot to say on video, gonna be live on video.
Well, good luck.
And we're gonna go from
Expose
there
the
with
devil's minion there. Pulpit
right.
pimping.
Black Idaho. Hi.
All right, Miss Dana, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. I had to come back in. I was out there feeding the chickens, man. It's late time out here in Idaho, and I'm out in the mountains, and the snow is clearing up, so I'm feeling good about where we're going. So really quickly, I want to say thank you. Peace and bless to everyone in the space. Thank you guys for having me up here. Dana, I had two questions, one for you and one for the judge. First, Dana, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about Vivek and Joy Reid right now and this current administration? And I'll pause right there before I ask Judge the question I have for Judge.
Thanks for that question. So, yeah, Joy, you know what? I've been stopped watching her show years ago, and I remember how she got put on because it was Melissa Harris Perry. She had the weekend slot on MSNBC, and Joy Reid was sometimes sub for her. And then I don't know what happened, but when she left, Joy Reid got when it got filled in her slot. And then she got bumped up to prime time on the weekdays, 5 days a week in 2020 because of the BLM and the George Floyd. So she's part of the whole Black liberal um, um, Democrat, let's say, plantation. So I never watched her because she's always with that I'm Black and I'm oppressed and all white people are racist and white supremacy. But then at the same time, when it was Black people, Black Americans, ADOS, FBA talking about reparations and all other tangibles, she had pushback. And then she would even say, take little digs towards Black men. She was just dancing for the liberals. So I never really liked her like that. And as for Vivek, I'm new to Ohio, but what I do know, what I have, come to learn, they like their in-house seasoned politicians. And somebody in the chat here on YouTube said that I'm from Ohio, but Vivek is seen as an outsider with connections. And I believe that because, yes, he was brought up in Ohio, but he left and became what, damn near a billionaire, in the tech world and hooked up with all these people. He really hasn't been living in Ohio. So he would seem like an outsider to them. And a couple of people don't trust him, right? And then the person, Girl Speak, also said, Indians rule Ohio. A lot of folks don't know it though. And Modi is hoping to flood the Ohio tech market with HB1 visas. And we all know that he loves HB1 visas. However, because he got endorsed with Donald Trump, he is going to be pulling a lot from that agenda. Particularly, he wants to bring a Doge agency into the state of Ohio, and I think a lot of states should adopt that. So I'm half and half. I do want to hear him out more, but I'm definitely going to be looking at the other candidates as well. I'm not going off, because he's popular on social media. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing, he does to a certain degree have that Obama effect, but I'm not falling for it with him because he's popular. So I'm gonna be doing some more research and keeping my eye out. But it's interesting because at least Ohio will be in national news. But yeah,
No, no,
so
no. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear your take on that. Because I was kind of feeling the same way. But I'm thinking America is closed for business, Joe and Dana. This whole idea of thinking that we need all these foreign accents to come in and help us is outdated, and we don't need it. I think we need to invest in our own citizens that we got here, because this is a beautiful place. And guess what? The people who went through all the shit here made this place the most wonderful place in the world, and everyone wants to come here. So here's the thing, really quickly. So I'll chill right there, Dana. Thank you so much for answering that. Hey, Judge. Judge, I won't ask you about your visit to the White House because you did such an awesome job articulating your experience there. So I was gonna ask because I hear it in your voice. You seem like a young buck, Joe. You seem tired. You seem like you had a good time. I hear it in your voice. So I
Well, I
won't ask.
did have a good time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You ain't got to tell me none of those secrets, gang. But I hope that a lot of things were beneficial for Black Americans. And I also wanted to say I'm a descendant of Tennessee. So I feel you, and I have a lot of big roots in Tennessee as well. So I really respect what you're doing there, and I hope you really do some big things. But Judge, I wanted to ask you. I'm out here in Idaho. I'm a federal employee, right? Uh, um, I've been getting those emails from Elon. A lot of my friends and everyone else are kind of on shells thinking we're about to be fired. Um, I wanted to ask your opinion about that. I wanted to ask you, do you think that's something that's going to occur? How do I articulate this? Do you think it's going to blow over? Do you think it's going to be a everyday occurrence? Do you think it's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, Judge? And is it legal what's happening right now? And I'll pause right there.
Let me say this: civil service got implemented so that it would be the federal bureaucracies would be independent of politics. That worked at one stage, but at some point it became a dysfunction. I'll give you this observation. I've worked for the feds before. And if you've got 25 people in an office, you've got four of them that are doing most of the work in the office. And the rest of them are coasting. And then I'll give you a personal experience. It's been more than 50 years ago. I was doing an intern thing with a DC think tank, and I said I had free time. And I went over and applied for and got a job at HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Well, when the internship was over and I was supposed to go back to LA, I went and turned in my resignation for the HUD position. The director at the time was all upset, said, "No, no, no, we can't do this." I said, "Well, what are you talking about? I'm getting ready to leave." She said, "Well, no, no, don't. We can't mess this whole financial thing up. We've got so and so, etc., etc. Just give me your forwarding address." So I did, and then upgraded it later. So for the next 3 years, I got a paycheck from the federal government for a job I had not shown up a single day to work on. And that's endemic in the federal system. It's like what you wind up with when you hear, say, in some place that's heavy with history like Great Britain. They're going to build a new mall, so they start on a parking lot. When they get into building the foundation for the place, they find some artifacts and they keep digging and they find it's an archaeological site and the history goes back a long, long way. Well, that's what is going on right now with Doge. The history goes back a long, long way. And there's a lot down there that people are no longer even aware of, that everything is built on top of, and the influence is still there. So we need to find out what those things are and whether they budget out as being something that's economically viable for the American public. And that's what's happening. And I do know some of the people that got these letters, and the letters are essentially asking them to please justify what you did last week. Not justify, please explain what you did last week that would justify keeping you on board this bureaucracy. And I think that's something that is appropriate to ask someone. I passed the mic. Hope that answered your question, by the way. Thanks for it. It was a good question. Thank you.
No, thank you, good sir. Dana, thank you guys for having me up here. You guys have a beautiful day. And remember, hey, if don't nobody love you, Black Idaho loves you. Come out here anytime. Peace and blessings, y'all.
Thank you, Black Idaho. Hopefully, I get to see you on my space later in the week. Um, that was a good discussion we had last week. I want to go to Paul. Is Paul still up here?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dana. You're doing a really great job. And
Thank
Judge Joe
you.
Brown, it's an honor to actually be able to thank you for your common sense and for, I can tell you, years of entertainment and watching the shows that you do, because I'm old enough that I got my high school education before the Department of Energy was put in place. I'm the cat that people ask how to spell stuff. So I'm not bragging on that. I do experience a lot of things where back in the 90s, I would be considered a conspiracy theorist because I saw a lot of this stuff happening. I worked for the Navy for 24 years. So I identify with a lot of people because I've spent a lot of time with a lot of people, and I'm from North Tulsa originally, so I do know lots about what it was like to grow up there. And in North Tulsa, it ain't just black or white; it's black poor and white poor. That's where folks are. Um, but everybody's put out a really great piece of questions and subject matter, and I remember seeing that preacher speaking, and just as soon as DeBlack was talking about it, I remembered him calling folks runaway slaves. Now, what that indicates is that those are the ones looking for freedom. And when I saw the event at the White House on my television, I saw nothing but black excellence. I saw people that are leaders of communities and not just the black community. Realize at this point in our history, when you do something for the black community against this big Democratic cabal control machine, you do it for all Americans. So I pray for, hey, Gibson, the guy's going to Atlanta and taking this on. I pray for all of y'all strength that have to walk away from a big group established people that think they're your family so much that they can tell you what to think, because that's just crazy. We're all Americans. We're allowed to educate ourselves at our own pace. And you see people like Elon, that's a guy who didn't wait for school to teach him something. He went and learned it, right? That's what we all got to do as Americans is we go out and make this place as great and as excellent as it can be, regardless of somebody's party or whatever. I always like the person that is a reluctant leader. Now, whenever somebody asks, um, Byron Donald, if as he's going forward, and I mean, he's the heir apparent. If he wants to take Florida, I think he'll get it. But I see a hesitance because he sees the responsibility and the weight of what he would be taking on, and I think he's really concerned about doing the best job at it. And this is a time. I mean, I got a bunch of heat back on social media during the last administration when they were cutting everybody off and telling everybody to shut up for saying that Martin Luther King's dream was not a black dream. It was a dream for everybody in this country, because he said, black man and white man, Catholic and Protestant, all colors, gather together. Y'all ever seen 3-year-olds hating on each other? No, they run up and they hug each other until some idiot that looks like them teaches them hate, right? So, Judge Joe Brown, I tell you what, I'm I'm up in my 60s, and I figured out how to get here and talk. And I just wanted to, I was thinking about why you wouldn't run for office, but I also realized that's just a whole lot more complicated than somebody wants to do. As we know now, we are the media. Them fools on TV with the Botox faces and the teleprompters, they're not telling us anything except what they're being told to say. Here on this medium, here in the internet, there's freedom. And I could see your podcasts and your programs and like this with you and Dana sitting here and answering questions. This is more information than we get from our televisions. Now I'll be quiet and sit back and watch everything go on. But Judge Joe Brown, I just want to thank you for your common sense, and it's actually a very fatherly presence you have on this country.
Why, thank you, sir. I'm getting to be an old man, but I don't try to think like an old man. I'm a bit older than you, quite a bit older than you, but I have run for political office and have held office. I think when I add up, I got elected to 16 years worth of terms. So I've done that, and I've failed sometimes. Last time I tried, they put somebody else's picture up for 5 weeks on ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN rather than myself, who was running for the office. So, it is what it is.
They prefer their Botox faces, don't they?
Well, yeah, not only that, but the point is they like people who do not resist their agenda, which I think is destroying the yin yang principle in the United States. And I think that's a bad thing. You cannot have a successful society where you try
Yes,
to
sir.
negate what 50% of the population is about.
I heard somebody say one time the checks and balances don't work if one person writes all the checks and the other one pays the balances.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Um, ex or cis exorcist. Did I say it right?
Yes, ma'am. You said it right. How you doing, Dana?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, Judge? It's been a long time. I used to be in y'all's lives all the time, but they took me out like
All
back in
right.
September. I don't know if you remember me. It was a friend of mine that was a radio host in Atlanta, and I used to bug you all the time to go on the show. But that was I'm glad to see you still doing your thing. I was flipping through the internet one day and I saw the picture of you at the White House. I was like, man, they finally gave him his flowers. And I was glad to see that, man. Because like if it
Well,
wasn't for
okay.
you and all the information you put out over the last 6 years, like you were first person telling it the truth before it was cool to tell the truth. And
Yeah,
we want.
you have to make sacrifices if you have principle. Like, for example, some of you may have seen these ads I used to do for law offices all through the southeast of the country. Some of those law offices started hiring people that I would characterize mildly as feminist. They objected to what I was doing and supported Trump. So supporting Trump cost me personally about $2.25 million in immediate income. So sometimes you have to make the sacrifices. Sometimes you don't need to get the recognition. It's just because it's the right thing to do.
Yes, sir. Well, it's nice talking to you. I'm glad to see y'all still doing y'all thing.
All right, sir. Thank you for coming back. And, maybe this time you can stay with us instead of getting blocked.
I can't tell you
I
who I
know,
am, but because it might they might take me out again. But like it's nice talking to y'all again.
All
I
right.
I
miss
Nice
get
coming
talking
to
to
your
you too.
spaces.
I get you. I think I know. Anyway,
Um.
do your thing.
All right. I want to get who. Drew. Is Drew still up here? No. No, Drew. Maria. No. Peter. Hi,
Yep.
Peter. Wait. Oh, there you go, Maria. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, ma'am, and
How
thank you
are
for
you?
the honor of the microphone and the Honorable Judge Brown. I have a legal question for you, Judge. Um, because we have lost our civics classes for several decades, I petitioned you to consider getting a bunch of judges and stuff like that, and perhaps refresh the nation about our constitutional rights from the foundation version of it. Um, but I know you're sick, and I wish you well. But my question is this: um, with all these politicians, like in Congress, that have participated in perhaps the Epstein Island child trafficking, people like Fauci with poisoning people with the shots and so forth, and this global business. Where in the jurisdiction would these people be charged for global enslavement and sex trafficking? Would it be the World Court? the Nuremberg court, where would it go and who would prosecute? Would it be military, international tribunal? And I'll leave that for you to help us all out.
Well, the reality is all of these so-called international courts are interesting, but they'd have to get you. And the fact of the matter is if the United States of America doesn't go along with it, it's going nowhere. So if you're a citizen, you're pretty much immune from an international court unless you just happen to be caught abroad and the State Department doesn't come to your defense. Now, Fauci, I seriously doubt anything that I've seen in the media would put him in jail because that may be ill wisdom, but it's not criminal malfeasance. It's not in the realm of having criminal intent. It's more judgmental. It's more lack of foresight. It's more lack of proper discretion. All these nebulous things that are out there, but you can't get prosecuted for being stupid in America or ill advised or lacking in common sense. What I think Fauci ran afoul of is basically a science fiction staple. Something comes up, a plague, alien invaders, you name it, and the situation resolves in the sci-fi thing for the last 80 years of you can't tell the public because they'll panic. So because you tried to hide the truth from the public, you miss out on a lot of solutions. And when the solutions start being put into effect, what winds up happening is the exposure shows that there was a big lie to keep people from panicking, and now nobody trusts anything or anybody. So it's a mess. But Fauci, I doubt, will be put in jail unless there's something else out there. Some of the
Fauci won't
other
go to
people,
jail.
what?
I don't know who that is, but can you stay on your mic, Carrie? Stay on your mic.
Yeah,
I'm
and
I'm trying
anyway,
to. It keeps going off. Sorry. Do you reckon Fauci?
well, just hold up. We'll get to you. Anyway, you're talking. I'm not giving anybody any legal advice, but I have been doing this for more than a half century. And when I was on the bench, real bench, I think I was in the entire state of Tennessee for one 10-year period of research, the lowest reverse judge in the state. I had 4-part reversals in 10 years. The next lowest person had 42. So that might give you an idea. And I did get into the law a little bit. And by the way, somebody brought this up. But it's worth mentioning that for years and years, decades and decades, it seems that less than 25% of practicing lawyers and presiding judges have actually read the Constitution. So that's interesting. But anyway, I passed the mic.
Anything else you wanted to add, Maria?
I am just stunned, Judge, that so many attorneys that you depend your life upon, a court of law, not to know the Constitution. That is very scary.
It
And,
is scary, but
and
particularly since the average high school graduate can read it in 15 minutes. It's not that long.
Mhm.
no, it isn't. And upon that, uh, can you confirm that the three positions, the magistrate, the trustee, and the servant, is the magistrate is us, we the people, trustee the military, and the servant the government?
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about in that I don't have your context. So I wouldn't
Okay,
answer that.
okay, the common sense version of the Constitution, as far as it's laid out, from what I understand and from memory as a child.
Well, okay. It's a living instrument. The very first case the U.S. Supreme Court heard back in the 1790s. That's 230 years ago, more actually, was what is meant by the common law. They said the common law is basically judge made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. Evolving. In other words, it changes. They said all law is judge made law until it is superseded by a statutory law compounded by legislative bodies. So, contrary to the typical mantra, when people talk about judge made law as an anathema, all law in the United States is judge made until it is superseded by legislators acting to pass legislation. So let's just leave it at that. It depends upon how somebody looks at the situation. Now, when you say we the people, we are talking about the group we the people become sovereign, not any individual person in that group. So the collective sovereignty of the people prevails, not one person saying, I'm sovereign, separate and apart, and I agree or don't agree with what's going on. Well, once you are here and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, or in other words, to the application of its law, then you are subject to the power and authority of the state or of the United States. And right now, since collectively the states that are united in this union amount to the most powerful military on the planet with the most destructive capabilities. So you run up against a whole lot of powerful authority if you say, I individually stand against this system as a separate sovereign entity. In England, you have a separate individual entity, it's the monarchy. The monarchy is the sovereign. In the United States, it's the collective of the people. Now, that's a digression from what you asked, but I think it's the best way to answer it. And I pass the mic. Thank you for the question, by the way, before I do.
All right, so I'm gonna get to Peter, then Sway Me, Bobby, and then I'm gonna swing back to the hands. If people want to say something else again, and you guys can request to come up. And please, everybody on YouTube, hi, please hit the like button and share the YouTube video. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Dana. It's good to see you. Hey,
Yeah, how
Judge.
are you?
I'm doing great. I got some work done today. Took the day off. I'm in the mountains still, so I'm going to do some snowboarding tomorrow. And yeah, just tuning in for the convo. I appreciate it. I really like the topics. And, Judge, I was listening to what you were saying just now, and I think about the legitimacy of the government to be able to rule. And that legitimacy is supposed to be given to it or granted the power to do it through the Constitution. And this always bothers me is like the ability of secret courts like the FISA court and other courts that seemingly are unaccountable to the people. You're taking away and you're undermining that legitimacy that was given to the government through the Constitution by having these secret courts that make secret decisions on behalf of everyone without the input of everybody. How do you reconcile that, and how do we move forward in an environment where that is happening more and more so?
Judge, you're
You're
muted.
muted, Judge. You might be muted.
Okay. I had to think about that one for a minute. I don't perceive those particular courts, which are things that deal with national secrets, as being particularly prevalent. And if anything, they're getting to be less and less influential. They're not immune to what the Constitution says about public and speedy trials. Public. They deal with situations that have an interesting result. Somebody's committed a crime. There may be homicides involved, but you don't charge somebody for a homicide in one of these proceedings. You just assess what's been done and what to do about it. So essentially, it's not something that somebody suffers any of the strictures of the Fifth Amendment, which says no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, nor property. That's the three categories without due process of law. That's on the federal level. And the 14th Amendment applies due process of law to the states. So essentially, those courts are not designed to deprive anyone of life, liberty, nor property without due process of law. So I think on a day-to-day basis, the citizens have very little to fear from something like that. But what they do have something to worry about is arming 84,000 IRS agents, which is totally unnecessary because you have the U.S. Marshal's office there. You create an armed agency, and you do that within a group far away from ideal secret police guy to be armed. You see what happened when the FBI became eligible to be armed thanks to the blackmail efforts of J. Edgar Hoover. Back in the 1920s, you already had the U.S. Marshals. If you were needing more people on a federal law enforcement level with guns, you should have just expanded the U.S. Marshal's office. They didn't. They created a new agency, the FBI, and the FBI is totally out of control. And there's no real reason why they should be armed because they are not doing anything that was not part of the original charter of the federal marshals. That's just an example. I digressed, but I hope you get the point, and I'll pass the mic.
But I appreciate, just as a quick follow up, it isn't what was exposed by Edward Snowden with Prism, with the program they're using to spy on everybody. Doesn't that speak directly to infringing upon your Fifth Amendment right against being deprived of life, liberty, and property? Because they could then use that information to do exactly what you just said and inform the IRS or other agencies to then deprive you of those very things that this FISA court doesn't do. So isn't it like a slippery slope by allowing them to do this domestic spying program in the name of security? It's actually weakening our protections.
Well, maybe. And it depends. This whole intelligence gathering thing is a very murky sea. Now, the likelihood of the average American running afoul of this court is very, 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 and I put a lot of varies in there, low. It deals with a certain select situation that deals with national security. There is a tendency that is more likely to cause people immediate grief, and that is involving homeland security in a matter where they get to evoke entitlements to have someone considered a national security risk and holding them incommunicado. And that's what they did with Diddy. The FBI was created essentially or expanded essentially way back more than 100 years ago to come up with the Mann Act, which is something they used to get R. Kelly on. And thereafter Diddy with a 3-count, basically, Mann Act indictment. So why do you bring in the Homeland Security people instead of the FBI? That's so he can be held incommunicado. And if you want to extrapolate on that and go conspiracy theory, what you wind up with is that's to keep people from being exposed. And what Diddy seems to have been doing with his video efforts over the last 15 years is build up his own little blackmail bank that everybody in the entertainment industry has so that they can protect themselves. But apparently some people that were of great concern to the political scheme of things were caught up in there and they didn't want those things out. So they went after Mann Act, which is basically transporting females across state lines for allegedly illicit purposes. And that's what they went after him with. And it was a 15-page indictment that was rife with all sorts of descriptions, lurid descriptions. And usually in the federal system, you would have gotten 2 pages of indictment, not 15. So there was a grandstand show which was using the access to a friendly media environment to engage in propaganda efforts and activities. So I'd pass the mic. That's just a brush up view on it.
All right, sway me.
Good evening, Dana, Judge
Hi.
Joe Brown. How are you? Judge, I was there at the White House and I missed you. I didn't see you there, but it was so crowded and so many people. I was just excited to be there at the White House that my freedmen ancestors built, and then the greeting and all the people. It was very, very nice. And I agree with you. I have some questions though. I heard some people are upset because they felt like there was a lot of symbolism. I wanted to ask you, what did you think about that, and if you felt that it was a great deal of symbolism, as well as I'll get to the next question after that. What do you think? Do you feel and think that that was a great deal of symbolism at the event?
It depends on what you're calling symbolism. See, in terms of the symbolic methodologies of making a nation, that's why we have these statues. You know, the heroic equestrian statue, where if you're in Firenze, meaning Florence, you see all of these great knights from 500-600 years ago with a sword held high in the air, mounted in battle armor on a war horse, or you see a Civil War leader mounted on a horse. It's symbology. It's sort of saying these are great guys. Look, we want you to emulate them. Look, we're making them heroes. We're making subject to statuary. So there's nothing wrong with those images. And if you were there at the White House, you remember when he made the remarks about some of the statues he was going to put around the White House: Frederick Douglass, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, which is like, wow, you know, you'd very seldom get anybody in American politics or holding an American office talking about they're going to put statues of those guys up. But yeah, you had the imagery. That's just going with the trappings of government. You see the Brits, you know, the Queen or now the King, who does actually nothing when it comes to governing the country. They do all the pomp and circumstance when they ride in the 150-year-old gilded carriages drawn by all of the white horses with the mounted hussars or dragoons escorting the carriages. or the carriage to wherever they're going to a formal parade. It's about circumstance. But anyway,
Yeah, I agree. I love the fact that he was recognizing our ancestors that literally did stand up for this nation in many multiple ways. And that were true patriots of America, right? So with that though, I noticed that he self-corrected. He did start saying African American, and within the speech he self-corrected and began saying Black Americans. And a great deal of people, we're offended by the African American. We don't like that term since it was just put up on us, right?
I didn't get put up on us. How that developed in my lifetime is by the time I got out of high school, Negro was kind of, wow, why are we trying to, tiptoe around this thing? And then about 1966, 65, late 65, early 66, Black got in. There was a lot of a resistance to doing that. Then about 67, 68, it became Afro American. And then it went back to being Black. And then somewhere in the early mid 70s, it started drifting from Black back to Afro American for a few months, it just seemed like. And then it went African American. And it stayed that way until about 5 or 6 years ago. Some of us on Twitter and other social media platforms, I know I did. I just got sick of listening to this little tiptoeing around the obvious, and I started using Black, and some other people did too. And now it's Black. So it's sort of like, how do you think of yourself? And there are people that get offended by the use of the term Black. So they are amongst us. And using African American was a sop to that. And then you have this thing with the federal forms. It goes the first block, are you Hispanic, non-Hispanic? If you check non-Hispanic, then you go to the next set of questions. And if you are Hispanic, you skip them and they don't even want to know. They just consider you this mass ethnic group of Hispanics. But if you aren't, then you get asked, are you white or Caucasian? Are you Black or African American? And then it goes on to other categories. So I think what he was doing was taking what's on the government forms, Black/African American. So I don't hold that against him.
Oh yeah, I don't hold it against him. I love that he self-corrected from African American to Black American, because I remember Jesse Jackson putting that African American out there, and yeah.
Jesse didn't get it. He didn't create it. It was
Okay.
out there.
Well, and then what do you think about him making Alice Johnson the pardon czar?
Bad mistake. Bad mistake.
Okay.
He gave a recitation about her that he got from Know Nothing on the Subject, Kim Kardashian. She heard a radio broadcast from somebody that was unalterably opposed to prison sentences for drug dealing. I had at least 6 first-degree murder cases in my courtroom where she took the hits out. She kept her mouth shut, refused to make a statement, and in American law, you cannot convict anybody on the uncorroborated statements as of an accomplice, which is somebody going along with the crime. Allegedly, what was going on is she took the hits out. When she got finally busted, she wasn't a grandmother. She was in her early mid 30s. And it was one of the third or fourth largest busts in DEA history. They got her for $87 million in cash she had in her immediate possession. And the street equivalent of 19,000 pounds, that's 9.5 tons of coke. And she is responsible for the crackheads and crack babies from Florida all the way up to Chicago in the United States in the late 80s and early 90s. She was working with there was a war going on between the Colombian and the Mexican cartels, and she was with one side and she had opposition with another, and there was some horrible contract murders going on at the time. So I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Right now, a lot of her lieutenants that worked for her are still finishing up long and lengthy federal sentences. So I don't agree with that.
Okay,
But
and
he did. Everybody's not perfect.
mm. Well, I knew she was from Memphis, so I didn't know if you knew her case or
Oh,
not.
I'm aware of who she is. Like I said, I
Hmm.
sat through 6 horrible murder cases, uh, first degree murder cases that took place in my courtroom. And she was the person that allegedly took the contracts or the hits out. So, yeah.
Okay, then my last question. I know I saw what you made a comment, a post about the advisors, some of the advisors to Trump, and how you.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
What I'm saying about that is
Mm-hmm.
there are a number of people that got pointed out, I imagine, to Mr. Trump. And these were people that were supposed to be able to make it happen within the black or the minority communities. They aren't all black, but they are essentially gatekeepers. And what I saw and have seen is that they're very jealous of their situation. So they block people that could really help the Trump administration and the people of the country because they look at them as rivals for power. If you've ever encountered on a job this type of boss that tries to tear down all of the people he supervises because he's afraid or she's afraid that if that doesn't happen, those people will outshine the boss and become the bosses. That's not how it works. The boss is supposed to make everybody look good, better than him, because that's his job. And you have fools who don't realize that. So you have their counterparts who sit in the position of being advisors or gatekeepers, and they keep the gate shut against a lot of people that could really help the situation out. And that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay. I can see that too. I totally understand what you're speaking of. Maybe we should have a conversation offline. But the last thing is, what are your thoughts about him acknowledging that immigration has hurt Black Americans the most?
Well, it's obvious. I mean, it's like it hurts everybody. You have a situation right now where crime in the streets is rampant in the United States of America. Our cities are horribly dangerous. Memphis is supposed to be the 10th most dangerous city in the world and the most dangerous in America. I live here and I know how bad it's gotten. So it does not do anybody any good when you do things that impact the public safety. And when you set up a situation where governors, senators, congressmen, mayors, sheriffs, and chiefs of police encouraging the rampant, flagrant breaking of the law, that does absolutely nothing to set up an atmosphere of law and order that is necessary to make cities a safe, prosperous, and enjoyable place to live.
All right. I see you in Q, the Negro, you feel me, and Bartonella. I have to bring you up when someone drops down. So if anybody is finished speaking, just drop down so I could bring up new speakers. I am going to swing back to Dr. Mark and Peter, but I want to go to Bobby and El Hotep and Jared. Go ahead, Bobby. Is Bobby still here? No. Okay. El Hotep.
Hey, how's it going?
Are you at
I
work?
don't know what the left. Yeah, yeah, right now, yeah. You know,
Because of the reception. We can't hear
yeah.
you.
What about right now?
Yeah, go ahead. You're good.
Okay. I don't know what the previous speaker's name is, but I did want to fire up on one of her subjects that she was talking about. I wanted to ask the judge about what policies were discussed at the White House event, if there were any policies off camera that were discussed. Just because I heard that there were some policies that might have been discussed, but it was hunched up.
He went at some length. I
And
mean,
I was
it wasn't a short thing. My recollection was that he spoke for about 45 minutes, if not more than that. And he covered a lot of things in terms of concrete policies. So, yeah, there were policies spoken about. It had to do with economic development. It had to do with probably one of the most important things going with turning situations around on the streets was making sure that the youth get the opportunity to become educated so they have other options besides crime. Uh, to promotion of job developments, to dealing with the fact that technology is evolving. There's an opportunity for the people represented by those assembled for the event had a connection with. There was an opportunity for them to get in on the ground floor of these things. So there was a discussion of prison reform. I recall there's a discussion of getting our dollars spent wisely so that it actually helps somebody out rather than furthering an agenda that breaks down institutions like the black family that need to be promoted rather than destroyed. A lot of stuff like that.
reason why I asked is because I mean, considering we're like 14% of the population, 44, 45% homeless. I understand that. Yeah, that is all good and all that, but we need concrete policies. You get what I'm saying? We actually need some bills passed. The reason why I bring that up is because like
Wait a minute. Hold on. Why do we need this when if you have a free landscape where nobody's holding you back, you can do it yourself? So you've got the Black Caucus, which is supposed to represent the interest of black people. And they could pass the laws. The president can't introduce a bill to fund something that has to come out of Congress, which has two chambers, the House and the Senate. Why is that not coming out of that? The president has no money to spend or allocate that doesn't come from
I'm gonna have
Congress.
to use the electric jet.
So here's the thing. It's, in other words, what he was promising was everybody would have the same opportunity as anybody else. And he talked about, matter of fact, he specifically discussed the trap of feeling that you're entitled to something and becoming dependent upon it rather than learning how to do it for yourself. And I agree with that 100%. When I was on the bench or when I was practicing law or when I did that arbitration thing on TV for 15 years, over and over and over again, the problem with at least one part of the litigant set was that they felt they were owed something. And they didn't deal with contract law. They didn't deal with decency, equity, or just plain morality when it came to, you just can't do this. People earn this stuff. You just can't come in because you think you're entitled to having your desire satisfied and take it. There's either a cost to be paid or something to be done to earn it. So I applaud that. That's a trap that the Democratic Party has gotten us in for the last few decades. In other words, it boils itself down to the parable. You can feed a man a fish, or you can teach him to fish so he can feed himself. And the former, that is, we want to give these guys the fish over and over again so they become dependent upon us and support us, is a poison that we can no longer afford to take. Now, I'll pass the mic on that.
All right.
Reasonable. I agree
Oh,
with
go
that.
ahead.
I'm just saying because if you look at use examples like, okay, the anti-Asian hate bill. Those are specific bills.
Wait. Oh,
And,
We
Hotep.
can't hear you, Hotep.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. When you look at specific bills like the
Can't hear
anti-Asian,
you now.
It's like your mic is muffled. You need to speak directly into the mic.
it's probably these walls. What about now?
Okay, you're going loud and clear.
Okay. I think when you look at specific bills like the anti-Asian hate bill, um, and other specific bills that other ethnic and other groups get, um, when you look at the speech and the content of the speech, I think that's why some people kind of get some pushback with the, okay, we just got some statues, we just got athletes, you know. And I think that's kind of the reason why the woman who was speaking kind of before me was stating with the symbolism, because I heard that too. That okay, you're just gonna get Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant. You're just gonna get athletes, and you're not gonna get anything other than that. So that was the reason why I asked that question. I'm not expecting anything from the Congressional Black Caucus because a lot of them are
Frederick
sellouts.
Douglass. Frederick Douglass. Malcolm X. Those are not athletes, or they may have been, I don't know, but that's far more important. The other thing is the other athletes were doing something else. Kobe Bryant's a sop. If Kobe Bryant never existed, the condition of black folk would not change. Frederick Douglass, if he didn't exist, there'd be a hell of a difference in the circumstances we find ourselves in today. Same thing with Malcolm X. So that's just part of the thing of politics. But, it is what it is.
All right. I need to get to Jared, and then I'm gonna swing to Dr. Mark and Peter, and then I'm gonna get to your filming the Negro, Bratnella, and Love for Toy. So go ahead, Jared. Hi.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate you having me up, allowing me to speak. Judge Brown, thank you for being here. My name is Jared Jacobson. I'm a lawyer. I practice out of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area. Been a lawyer for about 20 years, mainly in the areas of employment discrimination matters. I actually don't have any questions, only a comment. Judge Brown, I've seen your show, a few times. Obviously, it's clear you're a crazy accomplished businessman, but I had no idea. I had a question earlier. I had no idea how deep your actual legal knowledge ran. I didn't realize that was all arbitration, which you've kind of worked in to some of your comments. So I really appreciate that. I just want to say it's extremely impressive, and it's just a pleasure and an honor to hear you speak, be on the stage, just to share that with you. So thank you so much, and you may have just restored and renewed my faith in the judiciary. So I just appreciate hearing you speak. I just want to say thank you and thanks, Dana, for having me.
Well,
That's it.
You
counsel,
are.
I appreciate your remarks. Let me tell you one thing that's gone wrong with the American system. We have too many judges that aren't really qualified to hold office. I mean, they may meet the paper qualifications, but they're too inexperienced. Now, imagine you got referred from your family physician to a specialist, okay? And you go into this specialist physician's office and you see the degrees. But then you find out he's never done an internship nor a residency. You start losing confidence. Now imagine that it's not just this particular specialist in the medical profession, it's the head surgeon at a hospital. And you find out that the head surgeon of the hospital in question, for some reason or another, escaped the necessity for being an intern or a resident. That's what's happened. We have too many judges that are basically rookies or amateurs when it comes to their status in practicing law. They don't have the experience. I know in this Memphis area, there are judges on the bench who have, as lawyers, had less than 5 trials in their
Yeah, they're
entire
all elected
experience.
here in Pennsylvania in the state too. So that
Well, yes, sometimes they may be good, sometimes bad, but I can think of one person sitting on a federal court of appeals right now whose career consisted of putting her husband through law school, having 3 children, going to law school herself, taking the bar, passing the bar. 4 days after she was admitted to the bar, she was made a circuit court judge, and then 14 months later, out of law school, she was made a federal district court judge. Had absolutely nothing to do with excellence or merit. It was politics. And now that person, years later, is sitting on a court of appeals for the United States, and that person has never had a client, never had a case that went to court, never been in court as a lawyer, never had an appeal as a lawyer, and now is sitting on a court of appeals and has absolutely no perspective on what the devil she is supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I receive what you just said, and also compassion for the lawyers, practicing before her, it sounds like. So, besides not having the substantive experience and the knowledge, so I appreciate what you're saying, and I just want to say
Well,
thank you.
you might appreciate this. One time, my office got involved in the problem that came out of here. The original plaintiff won, but the original plaintiff had to get a new lawyer for the appeal. Her lawyer had to get a set of lawyers. The defense lawyers had to get lawyers, and the defendant had to get lawyers. And when we got up in front of the Sixth Circuit, the judges said, "What in the devil is going on here?" And when we told them, they said, "Oh." So they said, "Hold on, gentlemen, give us a moment." And they sort of scooted their chairs together. They're on rollers. And they kind of had a football huddle. And after a few minutes, they said, "It's pointless sending this case back for further resolution. It's not going to happen. But if you give us a little extra time, with your permission, we will rule on the case and issue an order, to a final order." And everybody said, "Thank you very much." But that's how bad it can get.
It doesn't require that much. I hear you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Good luck in your practice. Keep it giving a mill.
I'm trying, man. Trying. Thank you very much, Ron. Appreciate it.
There you
And I did follow you back, Jared. I never know when I may need to ask a lawyer a question or need to hire one. Um, so
No, reach out. No problem. We could talk.
okay,
No problem.
cool.
Of course. Thank you.
I want to go to. All right, I'm gonna go to Dr. Mark and Peter, and then I'm gonna go to some new speakers after that. So go ahead, Dr. Mark. You want to do a follow up?
Yeah, just a quick question for the judge. What are your thoughts on these activist judges? It just seems like every executive order is just a judge somewhere, anywhere in this country has the ability to like freeze it, essentially just thwart the will of the people. Because I mean, people voted for Trump to carry out his agenda, and it's like these judges are slowing it down at every turn possible. One, what do you think about it? Two, what do you think is the remedy for it? And three, do you think it's going to really slow anything down significantly? And I'll land there.
Okay, let me break it down for you. The Constitution creates the Supreme Court, and it leaves it to Congress to come up with such inferior courts as may be necessary and appropriate. All right? So, Marbury versus Madison, decided in 1803 by the U.S. Supreme Court, that's 222 years ago, said that courts have the authority to rule on the constitutionality of matters, all right, including whether or not something that is legislatively constitutional or not. So, what happens is law is not set up to deal with things on the immediate inquiring minds, and people just must know because they can't stand to be patient. That's not how it works. So you have lower courts that rule on matters, and then those matters go from uh, district courts, where what you're talking about is happened, up to circuit courts of appeal. and then from the circuit courts to the U.S. Supreme Court, who makes the final decision and makes the final ruling on what the law is. Now, as to whether or not judges are appropriate on making the law, I'm going to go back to something I talked on earlier tonight, which is the very first case heard by the United States Supreme Court back in 1792 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. 92, I think it was. And what the question was, well, the question was, what is the common law? And the Supreme Court said all law in the United States is the common law until it is superseded by statutory law. In other words, that a legislative body came up with. Now, they defined the common law as follows. I'm going to quote it exactly. It says, the common law is that body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. Now, this was in 1790 something when they did this, and they were quoting with favor an English case from 1661 held before the House of Lords in England that said exactly the same thing about the common law. It is that body of judge-made law. Now, let's fast forward. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I researched it. I agree with its premises and what it's about. The Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. Now, during the Biden administration, ATF, which is charged with enforcing gun laws these days on a federal level, got way out of line with something called pistol braces. It's a brace that you can attach to a pistol that helps disabled people to be able to manage one. Well, the Biden administration decided that they were going to ban these braces because it looked too scary to them. I am glad that a district court judge in Texas said, hell no, this is unconstitutional. So that appeal filed by the Biden administration is working its way up, but I don't think it's going to make it because I think the Trump administration is going to withdraw the appeal and let the decision of the district court stand, and that'll be the precedent set by a lower court judge. So if we who support the Second Amendment say that's a good thing that a district court judge intervened and overrode the Biden administration, then the opposite side of that coin is that some judge, no telling where, might perceive that what the Trump administration is doing is offline too. But it'll get to the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's one of the collateral consequences of the system that we have. It's clumsy. Some people may not like it, but it's a necessary part of the system. It's worked for a very long time, and the reasons that it works go back a long, long way in this country's history and way before that. So I would say just be patient. It'll all get resolved.
All right, Peter.
Yeah. Um, I was interested in what you said earlier about the woman who was the, well, I guess, pardon czar now, and her her escapades in which she was involved in regards to, cocaine dealing and murders that were ordered by her. I'm a big proponent of legalizing and decriminalizing all narcotics. And very simply, it's because it would improve the safety factor so that you could walk into, say, a CVS or another store or like a liquor store and you could buy your drug of choice and you could know that it's not going to be poisoned or cut with an adulterant that's going to potentially give you brain damage or kill you. I think that, as a country that's built upon the rights of the individual, we should reject paternalism or the father knows best attitude that the government should be intruding on affairs that are personal in nature. And I'd like to get your opinion on that as someone who's sat on the bench and has, overseen a lot of these cases in regards to the war on drugs. Where do you stand on that? You might be
You're
muted again.
muted, Judge. There you go.
Okay. Some drugs are like alcohol. When not abused, they can be interesting. Other drugs you don't need. Have you seen the zombies, by the way?
Yeah, the Zan or whatever it's called,
No,
Zank.
zombies.
I don't know.
Zombies in Philadelphia, Baltimore, other places. There a bunch of them standing on the sidewalk or in the middle of the street, and they're drooped over like they're trying to touch their toes. And there's a big pool of drool at their feet. And they've been like that for half hour and not moved, and they haven't fallen over, and nobody's moving them. That's fentanyl. Fentanyl is interesting. I had a problem with cancer one time. I seem to have beaten it, but I remember a 30-day supply of fentanyl had a copay of $1.62 for a 30-day supply. It was a small patch about the size of your baby finger's fingernail. You stuck it like a band-aid to your shoulder, and for 72 hours you didn't feel any pain. You also didn't feel like you were in your right mind, and it was not a good high. It was just like, what in the hell is going on here? This is not cool. I'm not in control. I don't feel like moving. And I made it a point not to take this stuff unless the problems got unbearable. Due to the radiation therapy, I had third-degree burns on the outside of my neck and inside my throat. That wasn't pleasant. But fentanyl would make it so you couldn't feel it, but you weren't about anything else. It was just like you were dead, but you were observing because you were still slightly conscious, but you didn't want to move. So that kind of thing, when it's out there, becomes problematical. You don't want that kind of thing to spread. Now, granted, if you go to Mexico, the pharmacies down there, you don't require a prescription to buy this stuff. You just give the doctor's note or you give your own note to the pharmacist and they'll fill it with some Schedule 1 drugs that you can't buy without a prescription in the United States. That may or may not be good when you have people who have the common sense to say, I don't really need to do this, but we don't have a lot of common sense in this country. And we also have a government and a population that does get some charitable leanings every now and then and says, we don't want any zombies standing in the middle of the street in Philadelphia or Baltimore, wherever it may be, blocking traffic and looking like, whoa, what's wrong? Why aren't they falling over?
That's the dope head lean, as they call it,
It's
right in
like
Philly.
it's
I've
like
been over there
Kensington.
in
It's like
Yep,
Kensington.
Kensington.
Yeah, it's
Yep, I
bad.
I used to have family down there. And Judge, I had a family member. He's since passed on about 10 years ago. He had thyroid cancer, I think, or cancer, and he had fentanyl lollipops, as well as the patches that you talked about. And he is said the same thing. He only used them when he really, really needed them. And I am sympathetic to your point about the zombies and people not having common sense in the country, but at the same time, they're doing it regardless anyway. And if all this stuff was legal tomorrow, you and I would venture to say a lot of people in this space right now wouldn't go and buy fentanyl and use it. So I think you'd have more targeted outreach to people who do need help to get off of it. And
I'm It's not. It wouldn't be a better thing maybe if there was some rationalization of what's going on with the drugs. But it's like, okay, it's an assessment thing. It's like anything else. It's got its downside and it's got its positive side. It's a choice we as a public have to make. But right now, it's very productive, a very high income for certain people, and it has some very dangerous side effects that are what they are. So crates of guns come in with the kilos of the drugs. And we can't stop the war on drugs, and we certainly can't stop the crates of illicit firearms that come in with them. So we've got smuggling, and the smuggling is big business. And right now, we've got a problem that's going to probably make us move on what you're talking about very quickly because our borders have been open and the cartels that have been running these drugs in through smuggling now have numerous representatives in this country who didn't have to sneak in. They just walked in and were probably given a ride to wherever they wanted to go, courtesy of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And Judge, if you legalize that, now you've taken away the ability or the incentive for them to make money because it's now ubiquitous. And so you actually eliminate the drug cartels, but in the same token, you're eliminating a lot of the funding sources for the black ops for the CIA. But I mean, at the end of the day, the
Sure.
people shouldn't be going to prison for possessing and distributing plant-based derivatives. And I just think it's absurd. It's destroyed a whole generation of people when, I'm sympathetic to people, who want to party on the weekend. If you want to go out and you wanted to take a blast of cocaine or a toot after you had a couple of drinks, I don't see what the problem is. And I don't think the government should be in the business of intruding into what you want to do on your personal time as long as you're not harming anybody else.
Well, how about this one? You know where the harm comes in? A crack baby 20 years after it's born.
That's
Yeah,
The
you're right.
mothers weren't.
You're right.
The
But you
mothers
could
weren't
also argue the
Because
raising
they
same
could
for
be
kids.
fetal
addicted.
alcohol,
Because they could be
fetal
addicted to
Yeah,
alcohol
well,
drugs.
I'll give
syndrome.
you that, but the point is some things are very dangerous, and even if you legalize crack cocaine, there are people that would use it, and we did have a period where we still do have a thing, but they don't talk about it much now. You've got crack babies born, and you can tell them, certain areas, families have outcasts or outliers in their family circle who have done this and they have problems with the crack babies, and they don't necessarily call them that now. But the crack babies do what happens with any other baby. They become adults, at least in physical stature and age, and they have problems.
yeah.
So, what do we do about those crack babies? And see, the woman that
Yeah.
I was talking about, you might say that she was the enabler for all of the crack babies born in the southeast United States from Florida up to Chicago at one point. And has anybody dealt with a crackhead, even if the drugs were legal? What about the crackheads? See, what are you going to do with them? That's not quite the same as an alcoholic.
I hear what you're saying, Judge. I
So it's
mean,
it's like if you legalize the drugs, we'll have probably triple the amount of addicts as opposed illegal drugs. You're still gonna have addicts, but maybe not as much
Yeah.
if the drugs were legal. But
well,
the
there's
crime
a.
would be
Go
down.
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, but drugs illegal, crime would be down, but addicts would be up. It's like a no-win situation.
Well, Dana, that is possible. I tend to think that it wouldn't be as much though at three
Mhm.
times the rate because you take away the forbidden fruit aspect, right? People want to do things when you tell them you can't do it. right? You see about what happened with legalization of marijuana. A lot of people don't use it anymore or have curtailed their usage of it that were, oh, I want to experiment, see how it is. But it became so powerful that they've actually stepped down to using something that's not as THC laden and have a psychotropic effect. It's actually used for pain reduction.
Peter,
Like with
there's a huge
the
physical addictive aspect to some of the stuff that we're discussing also, which is different than what you're saying though. If it's not as
yeah, I
cocaine could
understand that,
fall in
but
that category though.
if you look at harm reduction, if you really want to do harm reduction, right, you would take out KFC, McDonald's, and all the other fried food places that are contributing to the biggest killer, which is heart disease in the
Fair
country.
enough.
So if you have a right as an individual to choose your life path, then the government should not be intruding on how you choose to live that life path, so long as you're not asking somebody else to pay for your dalliances and you're not intruding on another individual's liberty.
I
I'm
don't disagree with
philosophically
you.
against it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. That's a good discussion. You know what? Maybe we could follow that discussion up on Thursday or Friday space, because that's a good discussion, and I really don't disagree. But I definitely see what the judge is saying, especially when you talk about the crack babies. But yeah, are we better off with legalized drugs? And real quick, I'm gonna go to you. Feel me? The Negro, Bratnella, Love for Toy, and Almas.
Let me
Dana,
let me
I'd
throw
love to
one little
invite
thing
Dr.
out there.
Carl
How you
Hart
doing?
into it.
Wait,
Let
one
me throw
second, you
one
feel me?
little
1 second.
let me throw one little brief thing out there. One of the problems that you have with illicit drugs is, how does the addict get the drugs? All right. Do they go hold up people and say, stick them up, I need your money, or go stab somebody to get the money to get their drugs, which they might get more easily if they were legalized? Or if we legalize them, how do they support themselves? Are they going to stop committing the violent crime uh, because they can get the drugs and don't have to steal to get the drugs? Or are they going to still steal because they need to support themselves, even though they can get their drug of choice and become addicts without, recourse? So it's a problem. Anyway, pass the
All
mic.
right.
No, Judge, it's an interesting question. Just one more point. It's an interesting. You make an interesting point, and I think I'd love, Dana, if we could get. I'm going to actually message him. There's a neuropsychopharmacologist who actually studies this from Columbia University. His name is Dr. Carl Hart. He put a book out on this, and he actually grew up in a inner city area, left there, got all these degrees and accolades, and then actually tested his hypothesis by using the narcotics that he was studying the subjects in his laboratory and doing tests. He actually uses them, and he explains it in the book. And he's a world-renowned researcher, Dr. Carl Hart. I'd love to see if we can get him in as well, because he could speak directly to what would be the best harm reduction strategy. And I think these are the things that we need to be discussing as a nation moving forward, because you've destroyed a generation of people with the war on drugs, and all it has done is enabled more and more intrusion on our civil liberties on behalf of the government, which, if you're a true American, you want to see the least amount of government possible and the most amount of freedom for the individual.
All right.
Well,
I like.
I'll put this one last thing out there. When I was on the bench, I got the recidivism rate in my courtroom dropped from the statewide recidivism rate of 84%. Okay.
Please don't
I
put the
got it
sound effects.
I
Bounce that
got it
person. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I got it reduced from the statewide rate of 84% down to just 18%. And what I did, there was a secret to it, which isn't much of a secret. It was, you have to give the person who's trying to kill themselves a purpose and a cause, and then they don't want to die anymore, because if they die, it's in service to the cause. What happens is, a big component of the drug addiction has got to do with it being socially acceptable suicide, because they don't like themselves. And if you give them a purpose, they stop disliking self and start looking at itself as a necessary engine to bring about change to effectuate the purpose and cause they now have. So they don't want to use the drug anymore. That's an interesting phenomenon I noticed.
Mhm.
But anyway,
All right.
there are things like that. Now, I passed the
All right.
mic. Let's
I
go on to
appreciate your
the
viewpoint, Judge. And Dana, thank you for letting me have the back and forth in regards to it.
No, I appreciate that. You feel me? You're up.
How you doing, Dana and Judge?
Hi,
How
how
you
are you?
doing, Dana? I'm doing wonderful, man. Hey, it's sounding crazy for me for being an ex-con, but it's a pleasure talking to you, Judge Joe Brown. It's a pleasure talking to you, brother. But I want to say that I got a couple questions for you. Like, how do we get the reparation bill together and the language? I would really like to know, because I know that you've been in the trenches for a long time, and I respect. I've been watching you. I'm an '80s baby. I am a crack baby. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of crazy. I think about that. My mama died when I was 12, and she OD'd right there in front of me, and yeah, it really affected me. Like, I was born in '86, so this crazy. I'm just thinking about it, like what happened to me. Like, but it's all good though. But I made it out the trenches, but I really didn't want to make it out until I had my children. So I was just thinking about the war on drugs, all that. Yeah, that was placed upon us, but we had to make it out. So I want to ask you about the reparations, and do you think that allegedly the LAPD killed Tupac? I want to ask you about that, and I land my plane. And I appreciate the space. Thank you, Dana and Judge O'Brien.
Judge, did you hear him? You muted.
reparations. This is the third time in my life that reparations has come up as a big issue. I've heard all of this dialogue that I'm hearing right now before. My parents heard it before, and at least one grandfather was old enough to collect it under when we did have reparations. That's when General Sherman, January 16th, 1865, issued his military proclamation that all newly freed colored families will get 40 acres of confiscated rebel land and one army mule. He made an application for that. He was born before the Civil War. Now, they got it, but it got taken away by Johnson, not Lyndon Baines Johnson, but another President Johnson that Republican Lincoln had selected as his vice presidential running mate for purposes of reconciliation. Now, he left me some writings, and he talked about they were trying to get reparations twice within his life, and considering the point where they actually had 40 acres and one mule allocated until Johnson undid it. I'm not optimistic about it coming up because there's another thing too. Our political clout has been slowly vanishing until it started to turn around and black people weren't looked at as loyal property of the Democratic Party. That is something that will get us nothing. Now, I will offer this. What one minority ethnic group in the United States has a lot of clout, looks like they get everything they want to? It's the Jewish population. I'll ask anybody out there, what percentage of the American population is Jewish? The answer is slightly less than 2%. So the interesting thing is 2% gets everything it wants, and more than 10% seems to get nothing at all. The question is why? What's the difference in the approach to the political, socio political, economic acquisition loop? And when you answer that question, you have a lot of solutions that suggest themselves. I'll pass the mic.
Judge, really quick, would you say that the major factor in that is their position in the Middle East and then allowing for the money laundering operation of weapons and keeping that area unsafe and unstable so that money can get laundered back to everybody here that's already in Congress and senators?
That's assuming that there is money laundering going on, but you have to learn this. When you look at a movie, there is a probability that guess who had something to do with scripting the movie? Guess who had something to do with the storyline? Guess who? Somebody had something to do with the financing of the movie. Guess who? Somebody had something to do with the production of the movie. Guess who? Somebody had a hand in the distribution of the money. So what does that have to do with, if anything, the perception of the American public has toward the movies and the extreme sensitivity that the American public has toward being propagandized, willingly propagandized by these movies? So
And
you
they don't
might look,
even they don't even realize it, Judge. They don't.
they
Most people,
don't,
yeah, they're asleep at the wheel.
but you talk about the Middle East situation that about 78 or 9 years ago got kicked off because some people felt guilty that they didn't save their national Jewish population. They didn't save their relatives from the Nazis in Germany and other places in Europe. So they felt guilty.
I,
And you got the Israeli situation set up. So perhaps you might understand that this same thing went on before the Middle Eastern opportunity to do your money laundering. Not saying that it doesn't occur. And frankly, I suspect one of the reasons that Israel has so much clout as within Israeli law, it is legal for the mechanisms of state, to wit Mossad, to commit political assassinations. That's a legitimate political tool in Israeli law.
so I'm gonna go to.
It's
Oh, I'm
not
sorry.
here, by the way,
I'm gonna go
but go ahead.
to. I'm gonna go to the Negro. I just want to say this real quick. Suleiman, I think I'm saying his name right. He holds a lot of spaces, has a really big space. And with his title, I just read it. It says Epstein and JFK files deleted by Israel. So I don't know what that's about. However, I'm gonna do some more research on that. And the reason why I brought it up because you just was talking about Israel. So I'm gonna go to the
I
knee.
saw that. I
Yeah.
saw that earlier, Dana. I didn't get to pop in there, but a couple people that I follow and bigger names are in there. I'm sure they'll have more to say about it. Wouldn't surprise me, but hopefully somebody has the information saved somewhere.
Yo,
So
real
I'm gonna
quick,
go
Dana,
to.
since you said something regarding that, I tagged you and the judge on a post on a news article regarding that. Yeah, FBI whistleblower confirmed, yeah, that the FBI is deleting files related to the Epstein case and all that. So yeah, if you get a chance to look at that, I did tag you on that, Dana.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll talk about that on Thursday. I want to go to the Negro. Hey, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon, Miss Dana. Good afternoon, Judge Joe Brown. How are things going? I hope things are going well. And happy Black History Month, even though we should be celebrating it 367. I do have some questions for you, Judge Joe Brown. With all this immigration talk, right? I see AOC out here. She out here coaching illegal aliens who are meant to be picked up, right? Who could be possibly terrorists and whatnot. And she's educating them, quote unquote, of knowing their rights to ICE or something like that. What's your thoughts on that? I really want to see politicians like her, Wendy Wu, a couple of them loudmouth immigrant supporters, who in the guise of these type of practices harm our community. So I don't think that we're not looking at it in the guise of that this lady is perpetuating genocide or this lady is doing things that is kind of detrimental. That's not advantageous for our community. So I would definitely like to know what your thoughts is on that. And should these politicians get punished? Because I really want to see these guys get punished because they're breaking the law.
Let's talk about that. Title 8, Section 1324 of the United States Codes makes what they're doing illegal. It is, I post it every now and then, a photocopy of parts of the statutes, and aiding and abetting, giving comfort, assistance, conspiring to, give invitation to, the senator in Congress who advocate this and do anything to carry it out, they're guilty of felonies. So they ought to be prosecuted and locked up. And I think this new Attorney General, Bondi, might get to that business. It's going to be very interesting. And do you expect your city to maintain law and order when the mayor is advocating a felony, open felony, that's going to harm you because somebody that didn't go through the dues paying events that you went through is taking the resources that might be more appropriately delivered to you? Now, I say if you are an immigrant and you go through the legal processes and become a citizen, more power to you. I got to be a citizen because a man and a woman decided to have a fortuitous screw one night, and I popped out 9 months later. I didn't have anything to say about
That's funny.
it. But some other people said, I'm going to make the choice and the journey here and go through the changes. We've had people on this space within the last month who attest to having been going through this legitimately for 35, 40 some years to become citizens. And I don't think that person or those individuals are very happy about somebody cutting the line. And see what the uh, Biden Harris administration were going to do is this: they were going to let these people in. And then, because the president is, in fact, the chief diplomatic officer of the United States, issue an edict saying we will consider their entry point January 21st, 2020. And what's interesting about that is if someone did that in the presidential seat and also said we declare them to be refugees entitled to asylum, they automatically become citizens doing absolutely nothing else within 5 years. So that would hit right before the midterms coming up in 2 more years, and they could vote. And they were being transported to areas that were drifting away from being blue to red. So they would restore the blue, hopefully, to this line of thought, and they could vote, and you would have 50 million more people added to the U.S. population. Now, most countries in the world are not 50 million strong. To give you an idea, during World War One, when we fought Germany, Germany's population wasn't any more than 50 million. It was just a little bit more in World War Two, 60 million. So you let in a whole enemy nation to roam around this country with no vetting. That is the biggest damn fool stunt I have ever contemplated. You have military age Chinese males who have had mandatory military training to the extent of 1.5 million. They're here. What if they get activated and there's some set to between the U.S. and China over Taiwan? You have Hamas, you have ISIS, you have Al Qaeda that cannot stand the United States. They've come over here. They didn't have to hijack airplanes like they did with 911 and crash them into Twin Towers in New York or the Pentagon. They walked across the border with military grade explosives in backpacks. Nobody checked them, and they got transported to where they needed to install the explosives in manufacturing centers, population centers, communication centers, energy centers, and they're ready to go. And these damn fools sitting up there with that grinning drunk hyena that got defeated to get in so that could be put in place even more uh, firmly. What in the devil has happened to us? And let alone all of the diseases that are yet to pop up because carriers have come in. You've got at least 20,000 people who've been convicted of sexual offenses who've been let in. You've got 12 to 16,000 known convicts for murder who've been allowed in with no vetting. What in the devil is the matter with us? But we have that. So get ready for some exciting times, I think. I would suggest that you do exercise your Second Amendment rights so you can protect yourself and the family, since there's so many out there talking about defund the police and et cetera, et cetera.
Judge, I don't know if you've ever checked out the Sean Ryan show, but he's had on a CIA targeter. Her name is, I want to say Sarah, I forget the last name, but she spoke at length for like 2.5 hours with him regarding this topic exclusively, and that Al Qaeda and the Iranians have over 1,000 sleeper agents ready to be activated at any time and reinstitute suicide bombings with backpacks, like you said. So it's very, very perilous times, and we could thank the cackler and the man in the basement for this. So
Right. Right.
Well, they don't even have to do suicide bombing. They've already planted the explosives.
Right.
All I got to do is flip the
Um,
detonators now.
Hey, hey,
yeah, I have
Judge,
one more
do you
follow up
think
with
Big
the.
Miss
Wait,
snitch
who is wait,
third party
wait,
corporation?
you feel me? I'm gonna swing back to you. Just give me a minute. The Negro, he's still talking. And I see Chip. I just need a speaker to drop down. So if anybody is finished, just drop down so I
I
could
can
bring
go
some
down.
Chip up.
How do I go down?
Oh, I could put you to listener.
just click the
Yeah,
three dots at the
Jared, you can.
top,
Yeah,
and
you.
it'll say switch to listening.
Cool,
Oh
cool.
yeah. Yeah, you do it. Okay. And go ahead, the Negro.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking about this whole 14th Amendment, I really think us as a community should really handcuff Trump to that, right? Since he knew that there was some harm due to the fact of the illegal aliens, how they um harmed our community, firebombed our communities in California, gang violence, and etc. These are things that has even played out even politically when it came to the LA Council, right? So these are things that we have observed when it with some of these other ethnic groups when they become in position of power and how they abuse our community as a collective, right? So when I see these type of things that are going on here, I want some restitution and repair for that as well. When Trump is out here talking about DEI restitution for white folks, then DEI also has harmed us because we have not gotten any of the resources because it was given to white women. So I just think that we need to be advocating a little bit more effectively and to always put money at the forefront of the conversation. And what's your thoughts on that?
In what sense do you wish to the comments? You have to be a little bit more generic because more specific because right now I just say those were interesting comments in terms of categories, but like, what are you asking me specifically? Just my thoughts on all of this? Dana, would you be getting Dana on me because she'd get upset if I held forth at some length, which I tend to do on such things. But okay, let me say this. We don't need hate crimes. Those are very bad because they backfire. When you come up with a hate crime and you make saying something negative against a group a crime, in 10 years that criminality gets misapplied and it's not fitting with the First Amendment. Uh, get that out of the way. Next thing, the illegals coming in, yes, they cause a problem. A bad problem. My position on that is clear. They need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and deported. It's a matter of national defense. And we don't want to have to be in a position of shooting them in the next 5 to 10 years because somebody sets up something where there is a cartel event to try and take over some area of the city, or Al Qaeda attempting to blast some structure. And a lot of people, to make a point, we don't want the Chinese being able to uh, deal with enforcing what they would have as edicts relative to Taiwan. We don't want that either. So, yeah, I tend to agree with the strict application of the law right now. But beyond that, I can't speak without holding forth for the next hour. So I'm not going to do that, but I'll pass the mic.
Okay. Um. Oh,
Thank you guys for your time, and I'll step down. Thank you, Dan. It's good to see you
good to
guys,
see you too.
and salute to you,
Good to
Judge.
hear from you.
All right, sir.
Brattanella.
Hi, Miss Dana. How are you?
Hi. How you
I'm
doing?
doing well. Thank you for letting me speak. Hello to you, Judge Joe Brown, and hello to everybody in the room. I was just trying to think about what I was going to say, but the last time I spoke to you, I've listened to your program many, many, many times, and you always say, please don't drop the F-bomb word, because not only are you on Twitter, you're also on YouTube and the guidelines and rules. And but I'm gonna drop a couple of F-bombs, but not the kind of ones that you don't want. But I'm gonna say you are a fantastic, phenomenal female, and I appreciate everything that you do. You're straightforward, you're feisty, and you come with the facts. And that's what people are looking for, and you can always back it up. And for that, and I heard what you said the last time I spoke to you. You gave me a shout out, but I didn't come there for that reason, to try to put anybody anywhere. But I appreciate you acknowledging that, and I'm glad we did the adulting thing. Had a little disagreement, we got it straightened out, and we did the adult thing, and that's what I be trying to teach my children. They grown, but they're still my children all the time. So I appreciate you giving me your time. Judge Joe Brown, you're now in the hot seat. Not that you did anything wrong, but I have another question, a follow question that I asked you, I think about 2 months ago. I called in, and we were talking about immigration, and I asked you about how is it possible that immigrants can come to the United States, open up in businesses, and refuse to hire American citizens if you can't speak their language. But as American citizens, if they come to us and we say, if you can't speak English, we can't hire you, then it's a problem. And you said if you have to file an action, and at that time I was at work, and so I couldn't really follow up. But you said I had to file an action, but I'm not quite sure what the action would be.
Did you hear her, Judge? And thank you for that, Brattanell. I really appreciate
You,
you. I really
I
do. I
appreciate
think
you
you're
too, Dana.
fabulous too.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Judge, did you hear her? You're muted. You have to unmute.
Come on, Judge. Don't go out on me now.
He he's probably having an issue unmuting. With maybe it's like his phone locking up. You have to unmute. There you
Okay,
go.
I'm unmuted. I got it off. I had to keep tapping it to get it to work. I hear you. What I said was, it wasn't so much telling you some lawsuits you could file as I was saying we have to stand against it. It's a political thing. I think that the challenges that the Trump administration is taking against this are the challenges of the Trump administration against this will wind up getting it resolved soon enough in court. I think that's a good thing. And that's going to happen.
So may I ask?
But meanwhile, don't support it.
So
Not don't support Trump, but don't support the transgression.
So may I ask you, so right now, currently on the books, there's no laws that will protect American citizens saying that, they can open up businesses and refuse to hire Americans, but Americans have to hire them.
There are.
Well,
Actually, sorry, Judge.
Chapter 7, Title 7 and Title 9 do give you protection. That's what I told you the last time.
Title 7 and Title 9.
Yeah, the Civil
Title
Rights Act.
7.
He's talking about you.
There
The
would be
discrimination
discrimination if
claims.
you're.
It's
Yeah, you can't
discrimination
have that.
race. It could be race, national origin. If it has to do with language, it is possible, and you might need to file at an administrative agency first, depending on the type of claim, like the EEOC or your state agency, and there are time frames, within which you need to file after like the last. And Judge, you can correct me, but within the last adverse employment action, which might be termination or, if it's not termination, there aren't a lot of damages and you might not do anything. You may not want to, but
Failure to,
yeah, he could say.
failure to hire.
Yes, okay.
Title 7 and Title 9. Now, Civil Rights Acts. So they're there. But what you were describing to me before was based on them not hiring somebody like you, but hiring somebody that couldn't even
No, no,
speak
no,
English.
no,
All
no,
right.
no. I'm saying they all was like immigration. They were always Hispanic, and they said if you didn't speak Spanish, you couldn't work there. And then I was giving you an example. If I had a cleaning business and a Spanish person came to me and asked for a job, but I said, no, if you can't speak English, you can't work here, I would get sued. But they're not being sued for refusing to hire.
Well, did you make an application to them to work there or do business with them
Not
in
personally
any form,
myself.
shape, or fashion?
That's the question always, Judge. That's always the question. Then you find out somebody didn't actually apply. And that's the end of it sometimes, right?
Well, I
Yeah, that.
applied for several.
If I remember the last time you weren't actually trying to work
Yes,
there.
I did apply for several jobs, and the applications on the application say if you can't speak Spanish, you can't work here.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to give you legal advice. I'm just discussing the
I
law,
understand
but
what you're saying.
you might deal with this aspect of Title 7, which says you cannot be discriminated against because of national origin. And in this case, your national origin would be here.
Okay.
Yeah, but Judge, wouldn't it be? Couldn't they say it's a bona fide occupational
It's not. It's not for that though.
language? Language
Not
isn't
for
It's not
that.
like a
there.
firefighter. It's not like a
Okay.
firefighter, that line of cases, if that's what the judge was going to say. It's not like that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you go ahead and explain it. Go right ahead. I'll give you a chance
No,
to
I'm sorry,
shine.
Judge. I didn't mean
But
to interrupt.
the
Please.
great business, I've had all of
You
it
can
I
go ahead if
need,
you
and
want.
I'm not.
Sorry.
Go ahead, counselor. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. No, I'm just, there are exceptions, like a bona fide qualification, if it's absolutely necessary, but English only laws are not, in that category. I think English speaking only, or the opposite, really shouldn't be. But I don't know how much sympathy you're getting. There's two parts to a case. Generally, there's liability. Did they break the law? And if it's a failure to hire, it has to be because of that reason, depending on the standard for which law. Title VII, essentially, you should be aiming for you weren't hired because of that reason, and you would need to prove that. And then there are damages. What are your damages, right? So there's two parts. There's liability, did they break the law? And then what is it worth? What are your damages? And that's hard to prove, especially projecting out front pay. Well, I would have been working there for how long? And then is there emotional distress? There could be, but you're not going to get much for that, right? At that stage.
I'm not trying to sue or anything like that. Just trying to understand the basic. But is this Peter who's speaking?
No, that was Jared.
Okay, Jared. Because Miss Dana, normally when I'm on your space and someone is speaking, we can tell who's speaking because their speaker thing is blue, but everything is just either mute or speaker or whatever. So we don't know who's speaking from time to time, at least on my end. So
try updating your app on your phone. You might need to update it.
Okay,
or like pull down. Sometimes when you pull down on it, like just pull down, like pull to refresh. It pops up. It's hard to see sometimes.
Okay, well, I appreciate all of y'all asking me, but when I last asked this question to Judge Joe Brown, I was at work and somebody came in and I had to do my due diligence and stop talking. He answered the question and I said, okay, thank you, and I got offline. I just wanted to get a little more information, not just me. I'm not worried about it because I'm not even trying to do it. I'm semi-retired. I'm getting ready to go all the way out. But there's a lot of other people who are saying that they're trying to apply for jobs and they're getting turned away because they can't speak the language of the person that is owning the business, and they're hiring their own kind. So that's a whole nother thing. So I'll do a little more. You say Title VII and to Title IX. I'll look those things up, to describe the best to my ability that I can. I appreciate you all. All of y'all, I ask y'all to do 3 things: stay safe, stay well, and stay warm.
You too, Bradnell. I appreciate you.
I love you, Miss Dana.
Love you too.
All right then.
Have a wonderful night.
All right then. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right, love for Toy and Rusty. I see you. I just need somebody to drop down. I'll bring you up. So after love for Toy, Alma's not still up here. I have Steve-O, Chips, Sherelle, and Rusty. Okay, go ahead. Love for Toy.
Thank you so much, Dana, for having this whole meeting today. And oh my God, thank you so much also, Judge Joe Brown. It's an honor to be speaking with you right now. I've seen your Candace Owens, and it really opened our eyes, because it was a lot of things that you set up there that was not even mentioned. All of the fake news and propaganda that was going on with the media and everything, and how we were being told about Kamala Harris and everything. And I really appreciate you for exposing the truth. And I'm so excited, like I said, for everything that has been going on, honestly, with the new presidency with President Trump, because honestly, with the DEI and the EEOC, honestly, I know for a fact that they weren't really doing their job, and there is a lot of corruption going on, because I have experienced it myself. For an example, I've been wrongfully terminated. Hey, shout out to you, Jared, just to let you know. Anyway, I've been wrongfully terminated by a major airline. Myself and my whole family, my daughter, she goes to Harvard. She just graduated. And my husband and I all work for a major airline, and we were discriminated against by management, and they wrongfully terminated myself and my husband. And it was because I was exposing that they weren't doing proper audits and things like that, and fines could have been distributed to them because of so. And they
Hello?
can you hear me?
Can you
hear
Hello?
Judge, can you hear me? Judge?
Yes, I think everybody can hear you guys.
Hello?
All right, so he can hear.
but
Judge, can you hear anybody?
Can you hear
Oh,
anybody?
No, he
he,
dropped
he,
out.
he,
Here
he
come
dropped.
Oh
He'll
Bob.
my
cycle back up.
gosh. But yeah, I so appreciate y'all anyway, and I really wanted to get to speak to him about that because, like I said, I've been having some time here with a lot of prejudice and prejudice things happening and things like that. So I would have loved his opinion on it, and I like I said, hopefully he can get back in, and I like I said, appreciate him and what he's been saying because we've had Judge Joe Biden out here. I mean, not Judge Joe Biden, excuse me. We had Biden out here, ex-president out here really as since 2021 he was not competent and he should have been impeached the same way that they was too busy coming for Trump and everybody else. Our whole government has been nothing but fraudulent activities going on, and I like the fact that they are exposing that and most definitely hopefully getting rid of most of the corrupt people that's been out there, like I said, the EEOC. I've reached out to them with proof and evidence. They never even looked into my case. So I was really clapping hands when they was this DEI and all of those things are being dismantled because they basically not working and not doing anything with evidence in front of them.
Okay, well, I can hear you now. Somehow or another, I got cut off. Okay, so I'm back on. But yeah, good
It still
luck.
shows you as a listener. You're not a co-host right now.
Well,
I can
mine
see him as
No,
a
shows
I can
No,
co-host.
see
he's a
him as a
co-host.
co-host. I see him as a co-host.
Yeah, he's a
Yes.
Okay,
co-host.
then I got to refresh.
Yeah.
I hope you was able to hear me and how much,
I
like I said, I
heard
appreciate
some
you.
of it. I heard some of it. Now, you're saying EEOC is not giving you any relief? I used to work there 50 some years ago. I'm not surprised that they aren't these days.
Right.
But, you know, go talk to an attorney. But the problem is most attorneys don't want to deal with EEOC matters because there's a lot of red tape to it. That's
Right.
the way it breaks down.
Right. I was told that I was not low enough hanging fruit when I did speak to a attorney about it. I mean, like I said, it's a major airline. I don't know if I should be saying it, but Delta Airlines is a major airlines. They basically, like I said, uh, wrongfully terminated. I basically suffered a hate crime. They weren't doing proper procedures when it came to uh, uploading the proper screening processes and things like that. And I brought it to corporate to let them know, like, listen, we need to make sure we have the proper x-rays and proper ETD machines and things like that. And management came after me for it, and I was harassed and terminated because of it. And I brought it to the EEOC. I've sent out things to the Attorney General. I've sent things out to OSHA, everybody, and everybody has basically ignored me.
Well, you've gotten into it and you're running into one of the problems with the entirety of the legal landscape right now. I wish you luck. Maybe we can go into it in some detail later, but not right now. So,
Understandable. Understandable. I appreciate you anyway. Like I was saying before, that you did not get to hear. I appreciate you and you exposing the truth. I mean, you've done, I think, just by you just talking to us with your wisdom, what you're doing for the Black community and everything. That is so much appreciated, and I just can't thank you enough. And so really quickly, Pete, I'm sorry. I don't think that we should be Amsterdam and have the whole world, the whole country exposed to fentanyl and things like that. I've traveled across the country and it is a mess when it comes to fentanyl. It's everywhere. And like you said, this is zombies everywhere. And I think if we had strict laws against it, then maybe it wouldn't be as such, because they have zones where they're allowing them to do it here where I'm at. And it's not acceptable to me. I know I grew up in New York where the crack epidemic was going on, and they did not allow it to go on. They cleaned up those streets, and that's what they need to do right now. Clean up these people outside looking like zombies. Make it not okay for them. Don't give them a zone where they can do it legally. They're basically bringing down the property taxes and everything. And I'm not saying that I'll be against these people and not get them help, but it's most definitely not, should not be allowed, and we should give strict laws, I believe, to make sure that it's not continuously happening.
I don't want to hijack the conversation because I suspect we're going to have one of these in a future show. But Fentanyl is a very, very specific case. I would say, what about cocaine? Shouldn't you be able to do cocaine if you want? Let's say you were out on a Friday night or a Saturday night. Shouldn't you be able to take a little blast if you want, if you're
I'm
not harming anybody? What's the problem with that?
I'm sorry, I'm just not for drugs, so it's just not for me. And I think if you are okay to do a blast, then when you go to work the next day, if they test you, you might get away with it. Okay, if it's a however long it takes for the cocaine to come out your system. But okay, let's say we want to just smoke a little weed, that's gonna stay in your system, and there's no 8 hour state. So no, I don't think that. I mean, if it was legal, it probably would help people like that. But what happens when somebody runs somebody over when they're operating a machine that they shouldn't be operating because they're still high from the last night before? So no, I
But
don't agree with it. I'm
I hear
sorry.
what you're saying, but they did a specific action. Their action was to run somebody over, and there should be an aggravating circumstance or an aggravating enhancer then if they're doing it while they're high. I think if you press enough of those cases forward and you let people do what they want to do to their own body and make informed decisions about what they're taking, you end up with a better society and you end up with less money being extracted from us in the guise of safety. We have to save you. We need the DEA. We need the ATF. We need all these agencies, and they need a lot of money. And we need to take more of your money because if we don't take your money, the bad guys win and the boogeyman comes and gets you. This is the part and parcel nonsense that they've done time and time again, and we're sick of it.
I
We
get
are.
you. I mean,
Everybody
You
don't
know?
keep no good drugs, bro. It's too many overdoses. We don't want to
exactly.
hear that.
But you guys have to see, right? Like I grew up like during the opioid epidemic. I lost so many of my friends starting during the Oxy days all the way now to the last ones that are alive that are dying because of fentanyl. You know, like it's a disaster. Like we've seen that, and the generation before us saw what happened with crack cocaine. Also, like basically finding its ways into communities, breaking communities up, and all of these things didn't magically find their ways up here. So that's why I was waiting for the judge to ask him like what does he think
Well, hold on for
about.
a second, Chip, because he had to drop down and I had to bring him back up as co-host. But if someone is hold on to your question because I have to go to Steve-O and he's before you, and then I'm gonna come to you. Um, Go ahead, Steve-O, and then I'm gonna go to Chip, Sherelle, and Rusty, and then I'm just gonna close out for the night.
And Dan, I just want to say I wasn't attacking love, right? I empathize with your position. I think this is a conversation that we all need to have.
Yeah, yeah. Like I definitely want to revisit this topic either Thursday or Friday because I like to do the spaces Thursday and Friday because I think it's a very interesting discussion to have. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Um
Absolutely. Thank you, Dana, again for having me. And also thank you, Judge, for listening. And once again, Peter, I don't agree with you. I come from a broken home. It broke up my family and I don't respect it. I'm so sorry. But yeah, thank you guys.
I'm with you. I've also had family members die of heroin overdoses and fentanyl overdoses, so I know firsthand.
yeah. Steve-O.
All right, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak, Dana. And how you doing, Judge Brown? I've been watching you ever since I was a kid. Well, I got three
Thank
questions.
you.
For sure. I got three questions, going to be quick. Do you think that the Supreme Court of Georgia can make Fannie Wilson testify? And do you think that's a feasible? And my next question is about Trump. Do you think he's serious about making Canada the 51st state? And the third question is, do you think that Trump and Russia can end the war in Ukraine without Zelensky there, since he missed the last meeting, and I think they said that he was going to resign or something. So, do you think they can end the conflict if he resigns, and they don't have a leader?
Okay, let's start with that one first. I think it is within the power of the United States and Russia to tamp things down in Ukraine. That can be done. Let's see. The next one you had, Let's see if I remember that when I was trying
I
to.
said Canada 51st state.
Canada, the 51st state. I think it was one of the biggest mistakes the United States ever made is not going up into Canada after the War of 1812 and annexing the place. And no, Canada would not be one state. It would probably be better to be broken up into the provinces that already are existing in Canada and then divide each of those into at least two. So maybe you'd get 20 states out of it. It's too big an area just to be one state. No. What was the first question?
And then I asked, do you think that the Supreme Court in Georgia is going to get Fannie Wilson to testify? Do you think, or do you think she's going to shun him again?
Well,
And what's the consequences if she don't? I'm sorry.
she has to respond to the subpoenas. That's already Georgia law. She's sort of making everything get stretched out, but she'll be required to give testimony and present evidence, but she can take the Fifth Amendment because I seriously think that Fannie is going to wind up in jail.
Right, because don't Congress want to talk to her? Don't Jordan want to talk to her? Can she
Yeah,
get out of
now
testifying in front of Congress?
she
Can
take the
she?
Fifth Amendment.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Appreciate you, Judge.
In other words, I declined to give evidence on the grounds it may tend to incriminate me. Actually, she was fool enough to incriminate herself quite extensively.
Right, because she already went on the court stand and already said what she had said. So can't they use that against her? The
They certainly
Supreme.
can. They've got a
Okay.
pretty ironclad for making a false statement to IRS. She said she didn't have the $8,500 to pay the taxes. They gave her time to pay, and then she gets on the stand, testifies that at the same time she had 15,000 in a cookie jar. And by the way,
Judge,
hmm?
who would be above her that they would want? Would they offer her immunity or like a 5K1 letter
No,
so she could test it?
they're
No.
not going to get that. They're going to get her. See, one thing too, in just Georgia law, there's $10 million missing. 7,500,000 to catch up on past due prosecutions, 2 million to catch up on sex crime prosecutions, and a half million dealing with juvenile matters. That's 10 total. It's just disappeared. And they want questions, and they already have the rights under Georgia law to go after, to explain where did the money go. Next thing, see, they have three methods of doing it. One, they can go through a circuit court, and the circuit court can issue the subpoenas and require her to testify before the court. Two, since the legislature is back in session, they can go to the sergeant at arms and he can go arrest Fannie Willis and bring her forcibly back before the committee. Or three, they can retaliate against Fulton County by saying, okay, fine, you don't account for this money, then we're cutting everything else off. So there are ways of going after it, but they can get her in, but she doesn't have to testify on the grounds it might tend to incriminate herself, but she didn't when she got in up and testified. And by the way, those cash transactions look suspiciously like money laundering. And the other thing, too, is there was nobody that had to second her approval of whatever Wade submitted as a bill. And he got $720,000 for essentially doing nothing. In context, the president of the United States doesn't make that much. And the Attorney General of the United States, for handling all of the U.S. legal business, gets essentially half of that. The two of them probably could have gotten away with him getting between $6.5 and maybe $8 million out of it, which they could have split, which is probably why the cash transactions looked like they did. So it's interesting.
Judge, as somebody from the Northeast, right, from Jersey and New York area, I don't know. I just look at the areas of like Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, that whole area. I just look as super old boy, corrupt, like good old boy, like
You're
just a
awesome.
place where
right? Like all backwards shit happens. Like it makes me never want to go there. Like I don't want to have anything to do with any of those states at all. And I just think that there's just massive corruption there. Am I that far afield in that
I
one?
would I would push back on you on that one because the same sentiments you feel for those states that is going on in New York and is going on in New Jersey. Definitely, I'm from
Definitely in
New
New
Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
That is
Yeah,
true.
I'm
That
in the
is
Northeast.
Absolutely.
I'm in Boston, and they call it the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Most most public corruption is in the Northeast. New York State. I mean, New York City has a rat czar because of the rat population in the city. It's disgusting. There's corruption upon corruption in the Northeast. I'm from the Northeast. I'd rather live in the South. In fact, my great aunt lives in Louisiana.
Right.
really
So
all right.
yeah, so we
Oh,
yeah,
it's
like
endemic across the country. Some places on the coast and in the south is a lot worse than other places. What I've noticed, it's anecdotal, is that these people have had parents and grandparents who struggled for equal rights. And now that they've gotten access to things, they are creatures of privilege and entitlement. They don't look at their obligations to do that. They look at it as an opportunity to mine public funds so that it can be the funds can be turned their own use and get rich. Like the mayor of South Fulton, uh, the probate court who just got ridiculous, just hardly out of law school, abusing the access to funds paid in through probate proceedings. It's horrible. The sheriff had a 3-year experience as a deputy jailer before he became sheriff, and his previous experience before that was as a gay porn star. So you get all these people with scant uh, reasons to be in the office they're in, and they're cooperating with the pulpit pimps in Georgia and Atlanta who get up on their pulpits and preach nonsense and deliver their congregations to these folks to put them in where they can steal.
Wild, Judge. I remember watching Joel Osteen on Sunday and just like, man, this is just the craziest grift in the country. It's just wild.
The
so.
second, just real, Dana, can I
Oh no,
just
it's your
jump in?
turn, Chip. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. No, I just wanted to ask, like, Judge, big fan here. I just wanted to ask, how do you feel that a convicted felon is the president of the United States, and do you feel better than than basically that's than the alternative, Kamala Harris? Like, would you vote for the convicted felon or Kamala Harris?
Let's put it this way. I seriously doubt those convictions are going to stand on appeal. If, for one thing, under New York law, before you can get convicted of attempting to bribe somebody to conceal a crime, you have to establish that a crime was committed. The judge refused to charge the jury that they had that duty. So the whole conviction slate is going to be held to be null and void. So there won't be any convictions. That's an example of lawfare, where the enforcement and judicial authority of the United States, or of the state of New York in this case, was used to oppress someone. And that's why we have the Bill of Rights when that happens with the federal government, and why the 14th Amendment extends the protection of the Bill of Rights to all citizens and state actions. So you had a pretty horrible violation of the spirit and letter of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Thank you. No, that's amazing. I just wanted to ask you because I want, like, I hear all of these people, just saying all these baseless things, and I was like, who's better to ask than, Judge Joe Brown? Like, I love this app. We have the opportunity to come up and, like, I remember watching you grow up. I can ask the question on the opinions of the president. You know, like, God bless this app. Thank you so much, Dana. Peter, thanks for being up on the stage. That's how I got the notification and got brought in the stage space. Thank you so much, Judge. I appreciate you all.
Chip's a good guy.
Hey, I
Chip's
just
a
got a
good
quick
friend of mine.
question.
So I appreciate him coming out
Yeah, I
and
appreciate that.
yeah.
All right, Corliss, you said you had a quick question because I have two people, the two last people. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, I seen that pop up right after. Yeah. Judge, I've always wanted to ask you this, and I almost forgot when I was talking to you because I was caught in the moment. But me and some friends were in deep discussion about public corruption, okay, and what the root of it is. And this question might cause a very disruptive answer, okay, because I don't think it's ever been asked. What do you think the state's Board of Bar Overseers and Commissions on Judicial Conduct play in public corruption and legal malpractice by neglecting their duties and preventing lawyers from becoming or staying lawyers that shouldn't be?
Well, if you ask the lawyers who practice, they would say that these agencies are pretty strict. People just get afraid to utilize them. They're pretty harsh, actually, because the legal profession tries to keep a good impression of itself. Because there is, for example, Shakespeare. He said in one of his plays, if you want to cure the problem, first thing to do is kill all the lawyers. So a lot of people think that way, and that's not good for the public nor the republic. So actually, I can see some things that would have an ethical consequence to a lot of the people that have been involved. And I can also see some conspiracy prosecutions, separate and apart from that, that come out against Bragg, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, the federal prosecutor that has most recently resigned in New York. I can see Smith. With what happened with the Malargo thing, the special prosecutor. I can see what happened with Fox in Cook County, Illinois, aka Chicago. They seem to have had some meetings to discuss what they were going to do to get Trump, and that becomes a conspiracy. And even though what they may have done was otherwise legal thereafter, it's still conspiracy, a serious felony if they conspired to achieve a result, even if by legal means. So if our new attorney general decides to go after them, I think she might have an interesting adventure in store.
Judge, would Trump have a deprivation of civil rights case against them too?
Well, I doubt seriously it will go that far that way, but the problem is you have official oppression, and that's criminal. That's something that the state does. I don't know what Mr. Trump's going to do independently or any civil action that he might take. I don't think he would bother because in the civil action you get to ask all kinds of inconvenient questions. But anyway, it is what it is. Ought to be intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops.
Sherelle and then Rusty. Gosh.
Hello.
Did I
Hi,
say your name
Judge.
correct? Did I say your name correctly?
What, me?
Yeah, Sherelle is
Yeah,
Sherelle.
you said my name right. How
Okay,
you doing,
good.
Dana?
Good. How are you?
Good. Okay. So, I'm hearing what you're saying, and wow, I'm, got to process all of that. There's a lot of information. But I was thinking about the economy and where people are at, especially people and kind of where they're sitting and their perspectives. And then I kind of heard a couple of conversations here. So a little bit of backtrack into those that are dealing with mental health and substance abuse. I'm here in the Bay Area. So, when folks are dealing with those issues, they typically have a harm reduction model that they put in place, or behavioral health systems that they're sending those folks to. Can it be modified to be better? Absolutely, I think so. Can we get those individuals off the streets and so that they're not out on the streets displaced? Absolutely, I think that's incredibly important. So we're not watching our kids, people having to see that. It's really a sad sight if you ever go into some of those areas where people have to be careful and look on the sidewalk and see, what's going on. So no, we don't want to see people displaced and harmed into different housing segments and having to face these kind of hardships and economic issues. We really want to see people uplifted out of those kind of circumstances and back into a more secure and sustainable options. And I think that that's going to be incredibly important. Do we need the funding for that? Absolutely. But at the same time, we don't need wasteful spending, and we don't need funding that goes into just fluff, and then you have these different situations that come out later on different committees and commissions where we're trying to figure out where those funds went because somebody displaced and done it. So miss, you get what I'm trying to say. And so those are the kinds of things, because now we're looking at even our education systems. They're about to displace about, I think it's 843 people. Yeah, displace them in the staff, the educators and the teachers and staff and stuff. They're thinking about that because of misappropriation of funds. So we really got some serious issues going on. And it's uncomfortable to see that, but we also have, obviously, Bay Area is kind of a pit. It's got a lot of corruption going on. It's got people, we got some new faces in there too. So I don't want to downturn what people are working on and what they're trying to make progress on, because we do see a little bit of progress coming in that direction. But at the same time, there's still some things that have to absolutely be worked out. And and I'm just thinking about the economic importance, especially for the people, to have sustainable opportunities, whether that be making sure that we are creating jobs and making sure that the jobs that you do have are sustainable. But I know there's a lot of displacement with workers, federal workers, and things of that nature. And I know that that's important to make sure these folks get what they're needing. And it's sad to see folks that had their jobs for years all of a sudden go. But at the same time, I understand from both sides that if you're somebody in the head of leadership, that you're going to want to make sure that the people that are in your administration aren't doing the opposite of what you're working on. And so we have these sort of conflicting conversations where on one side, you don't want to see people being displaced or, harmed by being displaced from their jobs and things of that nature, because they've got lives and livelihoods that they have to take care of, their families, et cetera. But then on the other side, there's been some corrupt people in place, and some of those people are getting removed from their positions. And so what can we do to, help those? And then at the same time, what kind of protections in place that we need to put? Because, that could be your family, that could be, you turn around and see those kinds of things happening. So I just think it's so important that, as a whole, we don't just go to the extremes and just start, every different department, we're losing all these different people. And then it just kind of destables our economy and our government and our nation and our country. So, because it just looks like a lot of dismantling. So please explain that to me. Please help me break that down, because I know it's incredibly important, different issues. And then there's something on the back end that I think with corporate on the back end that I think we can talk about later. I don't think I should bring that up in here, but yeah, that's where I'm at on this, because I think there's so many different important issues, and I think you can kind of illuminate on that a little bit more, elaborate on that as far as where I'm at on this. So hopefully we can talk about that.
Wow. Goodness gracious. Okay. How about the next 2 or 3 hours we reserve for that? But
I am so sorry. I was like, I just really haven't talked to you in so long.
When are you filing for your next political office run?
2026.
All right, there we go.
we got a little to go. A couple months, you'll get an invitation.
Miss Jackson,
come play some golf.
Miss Jackson is running for what now?
We're considering racing for Congress there. So thank you so much.
Okay. I felt that little flavor coming in there with what you
I'm
said.
being careful. I'm not coming out too fast because I understand the importance of really learning and really, taking everything step by step and just, re-listening and really paying attention to what's going on and what's going on with our economy, but what's going on with our people. And, you have to work incredibly hard to get in that position and to get into those different opportunities. But also, you have to look at all the different people that have been harmed by the economy and different things that have been going on, different natural disasters that have been going on. There's still things going on with LA. And there's still things going on, so we really do have to start working on making sure we get some people in there that's hearing what's going on with this country and ready to do the work as far as solving some of these problems and getting the resources where they need to be at immediately.
Well, let me say this.
You,
Rather than you asking me questions the way you just ask it, I need to be quiet and listen to you while you tell me something I don't know. Now,
But we're not going to do that
oh,
tonight because
yeah,
we can
all
reserve
right.
that for next Tuesday.
You
Tell
didn't
you what,
exactly ask a question
Mm.
or even a series of questions. You provided some answers.
Yeah,
hopefully I
did.
did.
Yeah, so I tell you what, send me a DM and we'll talk about it later. All right.
Perfect. Yeah, and I want to see you at the golf event, so I'll send some invitations and stuff like that. So
Okay. All right.
Judge, can I ask you a
you have my
question, please?
support. You sound like a boss.
All
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Impressive. Most impressive.
right. I want to get to Rusty. Hi, Rusty.
Good, good afternoon, Miss Dana, Judge. It's good to talk to y'all. So Judge, I wanted to ask. I'm hearing rumblings that Maduro from Venezuela, President Maduro, is starting to talk. I mean, again, it's rumbling, so how true it is, I don't know, but that he's starting to tell the Trump administration that there were kind of like explicit exchanges between him and Biden to actually send that Tren de Aragua gang or whatever over here. And, Trump was always saying that people were opening their prisons. And if we find out that this really was a concerted effort to kind of flood our country with, I mean, like real criminals on purpose, criminals, I don't know. It just, I'm sitting here thinking all the pardons that Trump, doled out. I mean, that's very, I mean, that's treason, right? I mean, because what would the purpose of that be? I'm just kind of
That Trump doled out, or Biden? You're talking
that
about?
Biden, apologize, Biden, yeah. But I mean, I guess my question is, if we do find out something of that magnitude actually took place, are the pardons going to help? And then a second part to that question, are the pardons going to hold? And second part to that question is, you also hear a lot of conspiracy theorists say that they feel like there's a military operation going on in the background. I was kind of curious if you have any thoughts on that as well. I mean, I really want to see some people, I want to see people go to prison or military tribunals or something. We have lived through hell, you know what I'm saying, for the past 4 years. And I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. That's another one of those detailed situationals here. All right. Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution allows impeachment of the president and vice president for three things: one, bribery; two, treason, which is about the only crime defined in the Constitution, and it's very difficult in terms of its elements; and three, you have misdemeanors, or they call it high crimes, but that means felonies, misdemeanors and felonies committed in office. Now, if that laundry list you cited in terms of things that Biden has done offensive, that are offensive to you, includes misdemeanors or felonies, they can go after him for impeachment purposes, even though he's no longer in office. And the Democrats set that precedent up when they went after Mr. Trump the second time when he was no longer in office. So it might be interesting. Let's see what happens. Patience is a great virtue. Let's see what goes on when we don't hold our breath, but we are patient.
Can I ask a quick question about the fact that we decided to allow Biden to stay there and incompetent? And if someone signs paperwork incompetent, isn't it voided? So all of those things that he signed while is not
No, they're still valid. That's the act while holding office. It is still good to go.
even though he wasn't
Well, you
mentally
don't know that. Nobody has proven it, and nobody has filed under the constitutional amendment that deals with the disability of a president.
okay.
That's the 25th, right, Judge?
Mm-hmm. So he's
So
still good.
okay.
I do believe that the Speaker of the House said that when he met with Biden, that Biden wasn't even aware of what was going on. Like he wasn't being told. Other people were making decisions and sending out orders that he didn't even know what was going on, especially with Ukraine.
Well,
Sounds
Right.
like an opinion, though.
No,
that's
actually, it's a woman, Lisa. Her name is Lindy Lee, I believe, or Lindy Lai, and she actually been in the president's office and worked for him and exposed it all on Sean Ryan.
well, there's a difference between civilian exposure and proving something in a court of law or as is necessary to remove someone from office. There's a big difference.
All right, so I do okay. So Arenza, I said I wasn't bringing up any more speakers, but I'll bring you up real quick for a quick question and comment, and then I'm going to close out because it's getting late and I'm getting tired. Go ahead, Arenza.
Hi, Judge. It's me, Renza. Just giving you a shout out. I have a question. This is based on questions that were asked to me, but I think I got it down to pretty much one question. Now that Biden's out of office and the Democrats are no longer a major issue, is the responsibility on the Republican Party to deliver reparations, or is it up to us to put our resources together to get what we want by making sure that we have the right people in place in Congress? And the reason why I'm asking is I'm looking at it like this. The Democrats have already had their butts handed to them because they didn't get the support for Kamala Harris because of what they didn't do for us Black Americans. Now, if the Republicans don't do it, they meet the same, if not a worser fate. I just want your thoughts on that. And I'll land my plane. FBA, 10 toes down.
Did he just?
Reparations again.
Lord have mercy. Okay.
Reparations again. A whole lot of effort is being expended on reparations. I'm sure that those representatives in the House and the senators in the Senate that are amenable to considering reparations have gotten the word. I would strongly urge anybody who's focused on spending a lot of time thinking about reparations to spend it on something more likely to be profitable. I'm not against reparations, but I seriously doubt that they will be acquired. The other thing is the population dynamics are changing. You're likely to get a situation in 10 to 15 years where there is no majority race in the United States, and Biden was right about that. That's nothing earth shaking and new. It's been out there for several decades. And with the dynamics, you're going to find that the white population that might feel some guilt, that might feel some, is going to be a smaller percentage of the overall population. And the new minorities most of which are not going to care about black folk getting reparations at all. So the resistance is going to be higher if it's not acquired in the next 10 years. Just a word up on the way things seem to work.
I would add to that too the replacement rate, right? If you look at the level of replacement births, not only for whites but also for blacks, it's very low. So who's going to be left to actually claim the reparations at the end of the day if you're not having replacement rate children?
That's a lie.
Uh,
Whites
so it's a,
is the low. That's a lie.
Oh, stop,
wait,
stop,
what
stop.
is the
One at a
replacement?
time. One at a time. But you're not getting, sir, that interrupted what he's talking about. We're talking about numbers. San Francisco attempted to come up with black reparations, which they supposedly passed, even though they had no money to support it. You have
Um,
a situation in California where 48% of the registered voters are listed as Hispanic. You've got 54% of the population listed as Hispanic. And I would hazard to guess that that population segment does not feel the slightest obligation to pay black folk anything when it comes to reparations. And even if Governor Newsom had signed the proposed act into law, you only need 25,000 signatures in California for a ballot initiative, and it would have been put on the ballot and defeated. Now, what is being discussed is the harsh fact of numbers. In 10 to 15 years, the numbers are not going to be there. You're not going to have a large majority of the population being white. Nobody will be the majority. The biggest minority will be Hispanic, most likely. And you get people who have no conceptualized part of, well, in the mix that has led to this unfortunate and evil legacy of slavery. You don't have the Indian population, meaning the East Indian population, with any sense of guilt on it. You don't have the recent arrivals from Europe with any sense of guilt on it. You don't have the Africans who have arrived recently, and you certainly don't have much coming out of the Caribbean that would be empathetic to it. You have a whole bunch of folk that are South American that certainly don't give a damn. You've got the Pacific Rim folk that don't give a damn. And you've got a large component that came in from Russia at one point and Eastern Europe, and they don't give a damn. So what happens is if you say 10, 15 years from now, you got white people who still had a sense of guilt and wanted to do something for black people through reparations, black people and that white population would be basically still a very small minority in the overall population of the country. So it would be nice if we got it, but where are you going to get the numbers?
well, Judge, how does the U.S. aid get all of these fundings and they can't even hand over reparations to us? They not given reparations to Japan and also to Holocaust people. We suffered here in America. At least the federal government, USA, in its total entirety needs to understand that we are owed this. They've given it to so many others.
Well, you can identify the subject Japanese population by name because they were carefully cataloged and registered when they were sent to the internment camps. And we know who was born in there, and we know who was a child immediately of the people who were in there. You don't know that for black folk. When you talk about the Jewish population, most of those who were impacted when the benefits came out were people that were alive and actually suffered through the mess. The next point is in world politics, there's always a rub. Why should the country do this for anybody? In foreign policy, it's to buy goodwill, to build up markets, to absorb the products of industry in the home country that is paying out money. All right. What can black folk do, or what will they do if they don't get it? So, in other words, if there is a consequence to not doing something when it comes to politics, somebody pays attention. If there are no consequences, nobody gives a damn. The problem is the perception of most of the country is that the Democratic Party owns the Negroes. And no matter what the Democratic Party does or does not do for their Negroes that they own, that's not going to cause any difference in who the Negroes vote for. So, what incentive does anybody have to award reparations? Except, oh my God, they're feeling bad. And then that gets into the insulting nuance that comes up from the World Wildlife Federation, ASPCA, American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Poor Oscar, he's chained out in the backyard in the kennel in the cold weather, and he has never known love. Send $19 a month so Oscar can learn love. You know, that's the
So,
way you're kind of depending on this whole thing, no matter how black folk characterize it. That's the way the rest of the people look at it. Like, why should we be nice to you guys?
Mm.
so
What about the
wait
40
one
acres
second.
of the
Wait one second.
mule?
Wait,
I really don't.
so
I don't have time to have the reparations conversation. And this is why when the first time when I said I'm not bringing any more speakers up, I just should have just stuck to it. Because reparations that did come up like an hour ago, but I need to close the space. It's
okay.
getting late.
Yeah. Uh,
So thank you to all the speakers that came up. Really appreciate you guys. Great speakers, great discussions, great conversation. Thank you to everybody that's watching on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. And everybody that's listening in this X space, I appreciate you guys. Everybody that commented, reposted, really appreciate you guys. And of course, thank you to Judge Joe Brown. So, Judge, please close out the space.
Well, I think it was a very good session tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
And
don't mean to interrupt you. One more thing. Um, but you could join me and Peter co-host with me on Thursdays and Fridays, and I may add Sunday. But Judge is here every Tuesday. So go ahead, Judge.
well, what I was going to say was if it was, I think, a very productive evening. The conversation was good. The order was acceptable. And I think we spread some understanding. So let's keep inquiring. That's always good. Pay attention to what is being said and done around you so that when somebody comes to you asking for your support, you will be knowledgeable enough about the performances of the person or persons who are asking for your support to be able to say no, yes, or hell no, or get out of my face, or whatever you do.
One more thing
So
I wanted to ask you. I didn't know next Tuesday. I mean, maybe the topic could be reparations. Um, well,
I don't really want to talk about
yeah, I really don't
reparations
either.
because
So
it gets
okay,
into there's
I think Sherelle should be the topic.
no,
well the
but
be the topic.
no.
There's lots that I have to say. There's a lot of updates on all of those topics, but
Yeah, but okay,
uh,
so I need everybody to just be
I'll
muted for
go
a
second.
second. Yeah. So
see reparations
fuck.
evokes a lot of
Oh
passion,
my God.
but there's very little likelihood of short-term resolution. So it's one of those things that detracts from those things that can be attended to immediately. It's like Taraj. Deal with this person right now, you can save them. This person, if you wait a little while, they'll keep and they'll be okay when you treat them. And these over here, you can put them in the back because it's not likely anything is going to get them together. So deal with your priorities,
Yeah,
you know.
I'll definitely that. And then the thing about reparations is why are we constantly talking about it? I cannot. and that's what I'm saying. Good. I'm not gonna have a space on reparations. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna be that person. If somebody come up and they ask a question or a comment about it, that's one thing, fine. But I'm not gonna hold the space. You're right. I'm not gonna hold this space and have you discuss reparations. Cause honestly, at this point, if you don't know how to advocate to your local politician or your local representative, you're not going to get anything. Like, and I always say this: start locally. Nobody never wants to have a conversation of the importance of local politics because it's boring, and everybody wants to talk about what's trending. But if you want reparations, and this is for Black Americans, if we want reparations, you have to do what's not fun. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody really wants to do the work. And it really has to start at the local level. So, yeah, no reparations talk unless the speaker has a question or a comment on it. So, but with that said, again, thank you, everybody, because I'm getting real tired. It's been over 3 hours. So I really appreciate everybody listening, talking, speaking, commenting, and reposting. And follow me on X at the real Dana 7, and of course follow Judge Joe Brown. And everybody have a wonderful week. Anything else, Judge?
Buy you some barbecue sauce. Amazon. Judge